What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Radiovania's DC Extended Universe in Review. My name is Zackratello, at Zackratello on Twitter, and sitting in the driver's seat is John Swansong Parker.
My father was a lighthouse keeper, and my mother was a queen. They should never have met, but he swiped right on Fish Tinder.
And Django Fett.
Saved
her from the ocean.
Shot her with his toxic dart.
Oh, boy.
Hey-o.
I'm going to say this right out the gate. I apologize for the audio quality this week, but John and I are doing something very special. John's moving to California.
Sunny California.
He's moving to sunny California.
It's on fire right now.
Unfortunately,
it's on
fire.
Rise of Skywalker when Poe's like, it's on fire. It's all on fire. It's California right now, unfortunately.
But you know what's not on fire right now is Nebraska, which we are currently driving through middle of nowhere Nebraska, and it's rainy and gross. But we are going to finish out, or at least start to finish out, the DC in review shows here. We're going to do Aquaman today, and then another time this week when we're making our trek to California, we're going to do Shazam. So for the next two episodes, you're going to get some not so great audio quality, but hey, I think the comedy is going to be there. You know what I mean?
It's all about the conversation, you know, and there's a lot of crazy things going on in the world right now. Our thoughts go out to everyone that's dealing with COVID-19 and the forest fires in California. We wish the best for everyone, and we just want to provide some fun content.
Yeah, exactly.
While we're on the road. Yeah.
And so, much like if you're a diehard Radiovania fan, you'll remember the Lehigh trip episode, which was another episode we did in the car. Wind turbine. Can we talk about the deliverance of wind turbines?
Before we talk about Aquaman, I think the government is building a gigantic helicopter.
Yeah.
Or even bigger wind turbines than normal, because we've seen at least 10 trucks go by in the past 2 days with gigantic wind turbine blades the size of probably like a small commercial flight.
Definitely bigger than some houses.
Yeah.
This might be a conspiracy. It's just another thing that we got to deal with in this 2020.
They might be taking them to Atlantis, to build some more hydro cannons.
Oh, the hydro cannons. Or like fish lasers, which we'll talk about here in a bit.
Yeah.
So if you've never listened to an episode of the show before, you're in for a good treat. Usually we talk about just, pop culture, nerd stuff, whatever we want to talk about. But we've been reviewing all of the DC movies from Man of Steel leading up to Birds of Prey, and then we're going to do Wonder Woman 1984 whenever it's safe to finally watch that movie.
Please, Warner Brothers, just release it at home. I will buy it for anything less than $40.
I'll buy it for anything less than $60.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, dude, don't highball me, because then I'm going to have to pay $60 if they're
Wonder Woman 84, Tenet, and The Batman. I would pay $60 to see those films, I think.
I think Warner Brothers is going to realize that they made a mistake with Tenet releasing it in the theaters after that low box office.
$20 million.
And they should put it on VOD now.
Yes, I agree.
See how much it makes, and then they'd be like, you know what? Just put Wonder Woman in people's homes.
Yeah, and then once it's safe to go back to the theaters, re-release it in the theaters.
Exactly.
Let people go see it on the big screen again.
Warner Brothers, just call us.
Yeah,
we'll call us. We will fix the DC universe for you.
Fire all your shareholders.
Yeah, get rid of them. I only need one guy on my team besides Zach. And his name is Mr. Michael Keaton.
Michael Keaton?
Yes.
The board of directors
I want him to be
Warner
the CEO, and I want him to play Batman all the time.
I think we can make this happen.
I think that's a good businessman.
So follow the show at Radiovania on most things. Email us with your questions, comments. If you like these movies, if you don't, give us your reviews. We're radiovaniashow@gmail.com. And go to radiovania.com and subscribe to our channel and watch our videos and listen to our podcasts. It's pretty funny stuff, if I do say so myself.
Yeah, or, our Last of Us 2 podcast.
That's right.
We do some deep dives on video games. We've done a couple of deep dives on things, and those are usually the ones that it seems like these hardcore fans of the similar subjects go looking for. So there's a little bit for everyone. And one thing that I want to get back into doing once I get settled into Cali is hopefully revive The More You Know.
The More You Know, the canceled series.
I only did 5 episodes, and then the beautifully remastered DVD, or the Blu-ray package, came out the following year.
Yeah.
And I would love to dive back in and do some more, on that sweet, sweet HD.
Oh.
That'd be awesome. And then what I would like is if you and I, maybe sometime down the road, I think you should watch Batman Beyond, and we should talk
That'd
about
be fun.
it. You don't have to watch all of them, but I want to give you a list of a couple episodes, and we do a Batman Beyond pod, because I think that is coming down the pike in the DC universe.
Yeah,
so
that'd be awesome. That sounds like a good show.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, enough about good superhero stuff.
Let's talk about Aquaman. So, Aquaman, released in 2018. Do you remember we saw this in the theater?
Yeah, Christmas, right?
Yeah, and you and my girlfriend were drunk out of your minds.
Yeah, there was no Star Wars movie that Christmas because they pushed Solo back to May of 20. Oh no, they didn't push it back.
They didn't. No.
They kept their Memorial Day date, and that opened the door for Aquaman to completely smoke Mary Poppins, I believe, at the box office.
Yeah, we'll talk about the numbers for Aquaman here in a second, because holy God.
My experience of that movie was, to be honest, was intoxicated. And it was quite the adventure to go on. However, I had a good time in the theater, man. Yeah. If you watch that movie a little sauced, it's good.
Yeah. I came home from an 8-hour workday, dead sober, and I opened the door to my apartment, and John's there, and he's like, "It's time to fucking see Aquaman, bitch."
I was like, your girl's drunk.
Yeah, your girl's drunk, we're gonna go see Aquaman, peace. You're the driver.
That's what I said. You're driving.
So, this might be a recurring theme as we dive deeper in the rabbit hole of Aquaman, but let's remind the audience, Zach, stone cold sober when he first saw this movie, John Parker, a little drunk when he first saw this movie.
But we should also talk about, how many times have you seen this movie?
Twice.
Okay. I've seen this movie 4 times.
4 times? Wow.
I got it on sale at Walmart. It was they had the Blu-ray and with the digital copy on sale for, I think, $15, which I think is a pretty good pickup for a Blu-ray plus a digital copy. I think that's fair, to own it in 2 mediums. And I was like, I saw this with Zach. I had a good time. I'll pick this up. I'll watch it again.
Sure.
And since then, I've watched it 2 times for fun, and then an additional time recently to do this pod.
Yeah. So. And we both have copious notes. You hear the sound of...
That's my composition notebook. I'm old-fashioned.
All right, so let's get into the details. Why don't we?
Yeah, sure.
Directed by James Wan.
Huge get for DC, in my opinion. But he's a Warner Brothers retained director right now with the Conjuring franchise.
Yep, produced The Conjuring 2. He was one of the writers on the original Saw. He was the director of Furious 7. Yep. Other random credits here. He was an executive producer on Swamp Thing. He produced the Annabelle and the Nun. Basically, he's kind of like the dude behind the Conjuring universe.
He directed those Conjuring movies, too, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think he directed Annabelle, but I think he did 1 and 2.
He did direct 2. He did direct 1. He directed Insidious Chapter 2 and Insidious 1.
Do you like the Insidious movies?
I honestly don't think I've seen them.
So, what we should bring up here is, in all 4 of those movies, another through line is that James Wan directed his clearly best friend, Patrick Wilson, and was able to get him a job in this movie. So
yeah, Patrick Wilson seems to be Christopher Nolan's Joseph Gordon-Levitt in this situation.
Sure.
He likes him, or Michael Caine. Yeah. But the writers of this movie, John, I got some nuggets.
Okay.
Nuggets for you.
Hit me up with the dank writers.
So the screenplay was co-written by 2 people. The first guy, I've never heard of either of these motherfuckers, by the way. The first guy, named Will Beall, wrote Aquaman. Wrote Gangster Squad in 2013.
It's a good movie, actually. Pretty fun.
Really? You like the Gangster Squad?
It's a pretty fun movie. Gosling, Brolin, and Emma Stone. And Sean Penn.
Yeah.
That's a fun one, yeah.
He wrote something called Deputy that was like a Fox TV series. And Training Day, a CBS series. He was a writer on a few episodes of that.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the actual Training Day.
No, the CBS spinoff show, I think.
Okay.
David Leslie Johnson, this guy. The other co-writer. He wrote Aquaman, co-wrote with that. He wrote Orphan in 2009.
Is that a horror movie?
Yeah, it's a horror movie.
Okay.
He was the writer of Red Riding Hood, which is that gritty Red Riding Hood reboot in 2011.
Okay, never saw that.
And he was a co-writer for The Conjuring 2.
Okay.
David Leslie Johnson, raised in Mansfield, Ohio, and attended The Ohio State University.
Hey, go Buckeyes!
So, one of the writers of Aquaman was a Buckeye.
Heck yeah, baby. That's why this movie slaps. D1, baby.
Aquaman. Production budget.
Okay, this I gotta hear.
$160 million.
Okay, double that.
So, double that for marketing and all that stuff. I was shocked at how low that is.
So
this movie is like all CGI.
Not all of it.
Everything underwater is CGI.
Have you watched the behind-the-scenes stuff, though?
No.
Okay. So, I mean, they do a lot of practical stuff, too, which is I think is very important for something this movie. But there is a lot of CGI, and I think the CGI looks pretty cool for the most part, except for that last fight.
There's some shoddy CG, but yeah, I mean, like,
it's better than Justice League.
It's what I like about the CGI in Aquaman is that it's like stylized.
Yeah,
like it feels.
That seems like
it feels appropriate for what it's doing.
The fact that the production is $160 and what they wound up making for it is why Warner Brothers was like, "Here's the keys to the kingdom, James Wan. Whatever you want."
Domestic box office, $335 million. International box office, $808 million for a worldwide take of $1.1 billion. It also made an estimated $64 million in domestic video sales, Blu-ray and DVD.
I helped that out.
Yep.
Dude, the world just wanted to get wet.
It's the 23rd all-time worldwide box office draw.
Adjusted for inflation?
It doesn't say.
Okay.
All-time domestic box office, it's the 63rd. Worldwide box office, 23rd. It is the 5th all-time international box office for superhero movies and the 8th all-time... sorry, coffee burps.
Dang.
8th all-time worldwide box office for superhero movies for worldwide. So, this movie made a fuckload of money, dude.
Oh, yeah.
A fuckload of money.
They just got a lot of doubloons.
Yeah. So those are the details behind Aquaman. You know, we got some actors who we'll talk about as we get into the story, but it's completely surface level. Oh, I also want to... I keep forgetting to mention this in the very beginning of these episodes, but I'm not a DC expert. John's the DC expert. He reads the comics and knows a lot of the lore. I just really like the movies, and I'm surface level. I read a couple of the comics.
He just reads whatever I tell him to read.
Yeah, right. And so, a lot of stuff that I don't understand, we play a game called Zach Has Questions.
Yep.
And John's here to answer all of the deep dive lore DCEU stuff that I just have no idea about.
Now, what I should also preface this one is, I haven't read a ton of Aquaman comics as well.
Okay.
Most of my Aquaman lore is picked up from the Justice League cartoon, Justice League comic books, which he's not obviously the titular star of those books, or the Jeff Johns comic book run for the New 52, which some of this movie is based on. Otherwise, it's like very surface level. I have not read a whole lot of the original Aquaman stuff. I mean, I've read his first appearance and things like that, but most of the books that I have read involve Black Manta. So
Gotcha.
yeah.
Okay. Well, then surface level, Jay. What'd you think of Aquaman on this rewatch? We're trying to look at it. We try to look at these movies with more of a critical eye.
Yeah.
These times around.
This movie has so many flaws, both from an editing and storytelling standpoint, as well as just like, it's just jam-packed with so much. They're like, we might only get one shot at making an Aquaman movie, so we got to give everybody all the best Aquaman stuff, to the point that it seems like there could have been 3 different movies worth of content. With Orm as the Ocean Master, Black Manta, and the Trench.
Yeah.
That could have been 3 different movies, but they put it all into one. However, I think Jason Momoa in this movie is very charismatic, and they clearly built the story around the fact that this ain't your granddaddy's Aquaman. You know, the blonde fish man who radars to the local whales and stuff to push boats into the harbor. This is like...
Sure.
This is the Zack Snyder's version of Aquaman, but he's having more fun, it seems like, than in Justice League. So I think it is a flawed movie that I enjoy to watch. Kind of like a Spider-Man 3 almost. But not. But I don't like it as much as I like Spider-Man 3, because that trilogy is holy, in my opinion.
Spider-Man 3 has a lot of, like, character and sentimentality, too.
There is some good heart to this movie, though, particularly involving just, like, him and his parents. And the relationship between him and Mara is, I think, pretty good. It's definitely better than what they tried to set up in the Justice League movie for that little scene that we got. I don't like the Ocean Master much. And then I go nuts for Black Manta just because I like the character design. But our guy Yaya from Watchmen, I think, was criminally underused in this movie. So, yeah, that's my 2 cents. What about you?
This movie is epic. It's sprawling.
Yeah.
It's stuffed with content. It's It is deep and has moments of brilliance.
Yeah.
But it's dumb. It's so dumb.
Okay.
And here's the thing is that, like, before we hit record, John told me, he was like, I think we're going to really differ on our opinions on this movie. And here's the thing. I don't think we're going to differ that much.
Okay.
I think where we differ is, like how much we're able to look past the negatives.
Sure.
There is some stuff...
That's usually where we have our divides, yeah.
There is some stuff in Aquaman that I think is genuinely brilliant. Like, the fight choreography, I think, is on another level.
Yeah.
All the stuff with, like, they clearly use, like, a higher frame rate camera to shoot some of the action sequences. Like, when Atlanta is fighting those guys in the very beginning and the camera's, like, spinning around. It's, like, that looks unique, and it works in this movie because it feels like...
Call her Atlanta?
Isn't that what her name is?
I don't know. Is it?
I think that's what Kristen... What's her name? Nicole Kidman?
Queen Atlanta?
I'm pretty sure it's Queen Atlanta.
Oh, heck yeah, baby.
But yeah, it's cartoony. That's the thing, is that, like, this might be the most comic book movie ever made. Maybe. It's just
very comic booky.
It's like everyone has, like, a quippy line to say. Everything is, like, sprawling, and it's like you could really see this translated into a comic book, which I'm sure they've already done at this point. But
yeah. When we saw this, I was just going into it. I was like, show me something I haven't seen before in a comic book movie, and this movie, I think, does a good job of that.
Yeah, and it's definitely
the first one to tackle underwater. So
yeah, and it's funny because, like, thinking about the process of this movie, it's like, what was James Wan trying to do in this movie? Everything. And it feels like he's trying to do, like, a Lord of the Rings comic book mashup.
Yeah,
because it's like...
To me, it's like an episode of Game of Thrones under the water.
Right, yeah,
you
it's
know
very
what I mean?
Game of Thrones, yeah. It's like, warring kingdoms, political stuff, intrigue, but then...
Setting up the world.
Yeah.
Horror.
Right.
Yeah.
But,
romance.
Right. Everything. Literally everything.
Every genre
of
has
film.
its moments. Yeah.
And then there's also an Italian love film somewhere in here where they're walking around a villa and a terrible, terrible song is playing.
Yeah, that scene's really fun, though.
Oh, it's terrible. So bad. There's certain... And that's the other thing, too, is that, like, you compared it to Spider-Man 3. I kind of get that comparison a little bit.
In terms of, like, campy.
Yeah, in terms of
not the best superhero movie, but it's got some heart to it.
And I find
some humor to it, and got some things to pick apart.
And I find enjoyment in Spider-Man 3 for sure. Like, I find it fun to rewatch because you can kind of, like, laugh with the movie.
Yeah.
There are certain things in Aquaman where I wanted to, like, hang my head in embarrassment for the crew. And especially the music, which we'll talk about. There's some musical stuff in this movie that is questionable, to say the least.
Yeah, that is the part that cannot be forgiven.
Yeah, and there's some editing stuff, like you said, it's kind of jumbled. There's some stuff that I would have taken out completely. Some storylines that I might have just, like, completely thrown out the window, like... like, Willem Dafoe's character? Why? Why get such a good actor for such a minor role? It blows my mind.
Yeah, I think all his scenes are really strong, though.
I don't know. I hated young Aquaman, too. That actor is cringe as fuck.
The little kid or the teenager one?
The teenager one.
Yeah, he's very Anakin Skywalker.
Kid doesn't
That's actually my note, is I was like, why did they get Hayden Christensen for this Trident fight?
He's terrible, man. He's
I think the Willem Dafoe part I like a lot because it's supposed to be kind of like... That character is supposed to represent kind of like Superman. Superman has two fathers, right? A father of Krypton and a father of Earth.
Sure.
Aquaman needs a father of the land and a father figure of the sea, and that is the purpose that Volko serves. And I was really hyped when they cast Willem Dafoe, but again, another person, because this movie is so dense, criminally underused. Like, he could have been as integral to the character as, like, an Alfred, but Aquaman has 4 advisors in this movie, right? Whereas Bruce Wayne in Batman Begins just has Alfred and then Lucius Fox some of the time. You know what I mean? So it's just like, again, that's where it comes back to how much can you pack into this movie? Because he's got his mom, his Earth Dad, Volko, and Mera, who are all trying to help him out and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
everyone's vying for screen time. You have to give everyone just the right amount of dialogue to justify their appearance in the movie, and it's like certain characters just completely get thrown to the wayside.
Like Ivan Drago.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, like, I wouldn't say that I don't have fun with this movie, but I'm constantly asking myself, why did they make this decision? When so much of this movie, there are a couple sequences in this movie, and we'll get into them when we do the plot. There are a couple sequences that I think are brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Some of the most interesting comic book movie shtick we've ever seen, especially in the DCEU.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But
a lot of it's got bright, scenes with the sun or the lights and stuff like that. It's very much contrast.
Yeah.
Even on its own, and brightness is just like dialed up from the Aquaman we see in Justice League.
Yeah, most of the fight scenes in this movie take place in the daytime.
Yeah,
which I think is
a
statement.
Daytime underwater where you can see everything.
Yeah.
Except for the one integral part that needed to be at nighttime. Yeah.
I also do want to ask you the humor.
Yeah.
I don't like no jokes in this movie land for me except for the bar sequence. That's like the only time where I like giggle.
Bar sequence is good. I like a lot of, not a lot, because I guess there's not too much, but I like some of the humor. I like Momoa a lot, I think.
Like both, as an actor?
Yeah, both for the memes and just like, I watched some of the behind the scenes stuff after this, okay? And Amber Heard said that, like, they needed somebody on set. Like, I don't know if they actually had it, like, or this is just a wish that she had. She's like, we need someone on set to cover everything in bubble wrap. Because Jason, after a really good take, gets super excited and just starts smashing stuff. Like, he just, I don't know, I just like how freaking happy he is to be Aquaman. Like, it's hard because there are some people that do comic book movies for the paycheck.
Yeah, sure. Oh, yeah.
And I think he really likes his role in the same way that somebody like a Downey Jr. really likes to be Iron Man. He does collect a big paycheck because he deserves it, but, say what you will, but there are some people, like Chris Evans, they are good at their roles, but they don't love being that character. And
I would not use Chris Evans as that example.
He
I feel like
want to be Cap anymore, though.
Well, neither did Iron Man. They both wanted out of their contracts.
Yeah.
That's why that's a whole nother topic.
But Momoa is different than Affleck. Like, Affleck didn't want to be Batman after a while because he was, cranky about it.
Yeah, Ben
Momoa
Affleck
will be Aquaman as long as Warner Brothers wants it to be.
Yeah, Ben Affleck is the more apt person to pick for that.
Yeah.
That example, but like. People like, I feel like Chris Evans does a really good job of in his personal life too, embodying that Captain America spirit, and he's also super proud of what he's accomplished. At least that's what he seems to put off.
Sure.
It's not like Ben Affleck, who's literally like, "Fuck these movies, fuck you." I'm gonna drink 8 glasses of bourbon and act opposite Gal Gadot in this scene.
Yeah, I should have known not to poke the Captain America bear with you.
Yeah.
Get very defensive about it.
Yeah, but. Okay, so is there any other takes you want to make before we just dive into, like, scene by scene, like, kind of run through the movie?
No.
Okay.
I'm ready.
All right, John.
This is also a long movie.
Oh, yeah. Way too long.
Bloated.
Way too long. But
like
I mean, like,
blowfish.
For how much content that they have in this story, like, it kind of has to be, like, almost 3 hours long. But at the same time...
Clocks in at, what, 2:20 with credits?
I thought it was even longer than that. I'll look it up.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was 2:20 with credits. But I remember when we were in the theaters, by the time you get to the final battle, you're just like, wow, they're really going here for everything.
Aquaman is 143 minutes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just about right.
Cool.
Okay.
Dead air.
Hit me.
Alright, so this is going to be hard to do while I drive.
That's fine. We'll piece it together. We'll work together.
I have my notes of scene by scene, but usually what happens is I run through the plot, and we're going to have to piece it together because I can't read and drive. Don't read and drive, kids. Focus on the road. But the movie opens with a very blustery storm on a lighthouse, which we get our first little subtitle of telling us where we are, right? Which is Amnesty Bay, Massachusetts.
Tons of they've used
1985.
They used the date and the setting text a lot, like
the
almost
setting one specifically.
Yeah.
But it's 1985. We see a CGI DH Jango Fett, also known as Tamura Morrison, I believe, right?
Yep.
Who played Jango Fett in Attack of the Clones. He's going to play Boba Fett in The Mandalorian Season 2. He's Moana's dad, but they casted him to play Arthur Curry's father. So we see this guy, he's trying to, storm shutter at the lighthouse up, and he sees a Nicole Kidman in this crazy, jumpsuit, and she's lying on the rocks with the bump on her head. While this is happening, we have our voiceover from our favorite guy, Momoa, talking about Jules Verne quotes that we're not entirely sure is real.
I don't think that quote is real.
If there's two ships in the ocean with no wind
and no tide,
they will find a way to meet each other, which I don't think is how science works either.
Nope.
Because you need a tide to move.
Yes, you do.
At some point. But yeah, so it opens up, and Jango finds this woman, and he brings her into his home.
But first,
to get out of the storm. Yeah.
I've got my first big problem with this movie.
Oh, problem. Okay.
She chokes up water. Isn't she Atlantean?
Well,
can't she breathe underwater?
She's on land now, right? So they spit it up when they're on land.
But a lot of the guys that choke on the surface die, don't they? Why does she choke up water and live? Is that what is this? I mean,
well,
he saves her from drowning.
What we need to remember is, as we will find out later on with the history lesson of Atlantis, is Atlanteans used to live above the surface, and then it sank into the sea. So it's possible that she could be part of a lineage. So she's just able to
tap into this energy.
It's possible that she could be part of the lineage of people that could walk between both worlds. Is how I interpret. Because King Atlan goes all over the place, right? He could probably, like Graham McTavish, he could probably breathe air and water. So, but yeah, that's a huge problem. Is that she's drowning.
Such a bizarre, and it immediately, it's like I remember seeing this in the theater and just tilting my head and being like, wait, hold on a second. Why? It's definitely it's such a weird decision.
It's a valid nitpick. Yeah. It would have been better if she was just passed out.
Yeah, exactly. Just have her passed out because she's her body is sprawled out on a bunch of sharp rocks. You could have easily just inferred that she got tossed onto the rocks.
Well, she's got a bump on her head, so maybe we're supposed to infer that she got knocked out from the waves and she hasn't had time to spit up the water yet to breathe on land. I don't know,
whatever.
Yeah.
Jason Momoa specifically requested Tamura Morrison, one of Momoa's acting idols, for the role of Arthur's father, Tom Curry.
He's probably one of the more famous Pacific Island actors, I would say, up there, in terms of just had a wide range of roles before and stuff like that. Can you imagine if The Rock was his dad?
Pretty
My son!
They're saving that dude for Black Adam.
Yeah.
Arthur Curry and his father Tom Curry are portrayed as being Polynesian nationality, with Momoa being Hawaiian and Morrison being Maori. Momoa has said that he was proud of making Aquaman a Polynesian, as Polynesians have a strong aquatic heritage.
I love that idea. In the same way that I like how the Amazons and Wonder Woman are Mediterranean. I think that's pretty cool. But here's what I want to know. If you're Polynesian, why are you living in New England? Wouldn't you prefer to be a lighthouse keeper in the Pacific?
In the Pacific. Maybe that's just the opportunity that presented itself to him.
This is the interview that he got on Indeed, was the lighthouse keeper in Massachusetts. Do you think Tom Curry is a Pats fan? This is what I wanted to ask you. Do you think he's like, hey, son, go Pats?
I love that Tom Brady.
I love Thomas Brady.
I wish that they could have been watching some kind of sports ball game in the bar, and that would have been a good little get there. But
yeah.
So then he brings her into the house.
She wakes up and she is freaking out.
She eats a fish.
And he's coming in to bring her tea, and he asks her not to eat his dog and stuff like that. And we have this fish out of water moment where he's teaching her how to blow the tea because it's too hot. And she drinks it a little bit, and then he starts talking to her, and we do find out that she can speak English, because he asks what her he's like, I'm Tom, and she's like, she
I am Steve Rogers.
I am Steve Rogers.
No, this is where she says I'm Atlanta.
Yeah. Is it Atlanta or
Atlanta? It's Atlanta.
That's so weird.
I wish that I could listen to the pronunciation.
I think you're right. Just look up the casting call and see how it's spelled, because that's what I want to know. I think you might be right, though. I think it is Atlanta. Which is just ridiculous.
Yeah, A-T-L-A, or Atlanta. Okay. A-T-L-A-N-N-A.
But they pronounce it like Queen Atlanta.
I'm pretty sure they use a hard A, Atlanta.
I think Mara says it. It's like the Han hand.
Yeah,
you know,
maybe.
It's like every actor, they don't really care. Or like Jor-El in the original Superman movie with Krypton.
Krypton. Yeah.
Krypton. All right. So we have our montage continues of them falling in love while Momoa's, providing a narrative about how they were from two separate worlds and their love was going to unite the land and the sea. And we see that Django knocks up the Queen of Atlantis. They're laying in bed, and eventually he's born. Right. We see a little baby Jason. And,
little baby Jay.
And she's, telling him the story of this powerful trident with like a fork and a teddy bear, right? And it's at this moment that the Atlanteans bust in, and they're like these weird aquatic-looking stormtrooper guys.
I love the designs of these guys.
Yeah,
love the
armor.
this
is something that happens multiple times in this movie, where there's like a quiet moment with beautiful dialogue, pretty cool scenes,
and then it explodes,
and people just like storm in, and then fights ensue. And Queen Atlanta kicks all of their ass with her trident.
Yeah.
She wipes them all out. But she tells Tom that she has to go back and that she was part of an arranged marriage and she left, and they're going to keep hunting him and little Arthur down. Which, by the way, we forgot. They named him Arthur after a hurricane.
Like the hurricane?
Like the hurricane. But so she has to leave, and she tells him that she'll be back one day, and she'll meet him on this dock.
Right. Also want to point out, the de-aging of Nicole Kidman and...
I don't think they de-aged her at all, because she's beautiful and has not aged it.
Right.
But they definitely de-aged Django.
But the de-aging of Django in the house, spectacular. Looked great. The de-aging of him on the pier looked like a fucking video game.
Yeah, it did.
It looked terrible.
Yeah.
Absolutely terrible.
So she leaves, and we find out that he goes out to the dock every day. And he waits for her at sunrise, which is very cute, but also, like, poor Django, you know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
So then we jump ahead in time a little bit, and there's an aquarium. I can't remember, does it say, like, Massachusetts Aquarium, like in a subtitle? It doesn't matter. But there's these bullies, classic superhero stuff. There's the bullies from school. And they're taunting all these
Arthur's
fish.
talking to the fishes.
Yeah, they're taunting these fish at the aquarium. They're banging on the glass like in Finding Nemo. And then Arthur is like, hi, fishy. Hey, fishy. And they're like, look at little Arthur talking to the fish. And they like pin him up against the glass. And his anxiety causes a shark to try and protect him. So we kind of see how, his relationship with the fish begins to happen.
Right.
And Arthur's able to calm it down with his little sonar thing, and this is where we get our first taste of Super Friends version of Aquaman, where he goes like, woo, 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 and then sends out the little beacons to commune with the aquatic creatures.
Yeah.
And then we get our title card.
I don't like anything about this.
That scene?
Yeah, I don't like any of this. So you don't need this at all. You could have just cut from the Nicole Kidman jumping back into the water and like pan up or pan down into the water and show it. I think this is so cliche, and this is one of those decisions where it's like, really, James Wan decided this was in there? And this is where I think like maybe there was some studio involvement.
I think they wanted to show him use his powers a little bit, and it's kind of like Harry Potter, how like in mutants, right? Your powers activate when you're in intense stress or fear or something. But I think there's definitely a better way to do it, probably in a vocal training session, right?
Yeah, or you just show his powers at some point. He even says it at some point where he's like, I tell the fish. What does he say? It's like that's Justice League. I let the fish do the talking.
I let the water do the talking.
Let the water do the talking.
Yeah, but that's like a throwaway joke, and that's not even how it works in the movie, in the Aquaman movie. I can't remember when else he uses it again in this movie, besides obviously to communicate with the Kurgan or whatever the hell that thing's called at the end and stuff like that.
He talks to the whale to let them jump inside and sleep inside its mouth.
Right. Yeah.
Pinocchio style. Yeah. It's a book. But yeah, I don't know.
Cool.
Move past it.
Moving past it. So we're somewhere in some ocean. We get our next title, or we get our next subtext of where we're at.
Yep.
And we see this type of like triangular sub thing moving up onto an actual submarine. And we come to find out that it is a series of these like high-tech pirates, and they are taking over this submarine. And we are introduced to our guy, and I always mess up his last name. I feel it's like Yahya something Mateen.
That sounds right.
Yeah. He's playing David Kane, who we will come to find out is the Black Manta. and him and his dad are father and son pirate business owners, where they take over nuclear subs and or just other things on the high seas.
Yeah.
And we get all of this, again, these are scenes that maybe are unnecessary, right? So it's like, we have this whole sequence of him being like, talking to him about this knife, and he's like telling him about your dad.
They called him Mana.
Your grandpa they called him the Black Mana. He was the first frog man. He was so stealthy in the water in World War II. So we're just getting tons and tons and tons of backstory. But yeah, so these guys they're taking over this sub, right? And then we get our adult Aquaman shows up, and he
permission to come aboard.
He pushes the sub out of the water. He comes in there, permission to come aboard, and he just comes in and he's just wrecking guys.
Yeah,
right.
So this is another one of the things I mean by like this movie being so comic booky. It's like he has a quip for everything he says.
Yeah.
And I also want to point out that Jason Momoa grunts every time he does anything. Picks up a thing, goes, ugh, throws it, ugh, hits a guy, ugh.
He's very much a barbarian type of man.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's also like there's musical cues for certain characters in this movie, and in this scene it happens like 5 times, which is like Aquaman gets hit and then he doesn't react and he looks back and it goes like bow bow bow.
It's like goes wow.
Yeah, it's like the beginning of a Britney Spears song. Bow bow bow. And then it happens later with Ocean Master where it's like dun dun dun.
Everyone has a little musical cue. Every time anyone says anything dramatic, quote unquote,
sure.
They give it a little bit. Someone goes, "That's not a man." Don't they say that at one point?
It's like that's exactly. But Aquaman, he's coming in and he saves all the sailors, and I thought this was kind of interesting that he like opens the door where all the hostages are, and he can speak Russian to them. I do think it's cool that they're like, this man is like a world traveler via the oceans, and he's just picked up languages along the way, right? Because we see him in Justice League, like rescue that dude on the sailboat and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I think it's cool that they make him kind of like Diana in the Amazon, so they can speak hundreds of languages. He personally has just picked it up because he's just like a nomadic person.
Yeah,
I think that's a really cool take on Aquaman, because normally I don't think he could do that. I really wanted him to speak Dothraki a little bit in this movie. That would have been rad.
There's got to be, I don't know any of the trivia, but there's got to be some sort of Game of Thrones reference somewhere in this movie.
Yeah, probably. So he gets into a scuffle with Black Manta. And he kind of gets the better of this dude, and then Black Manta's dad decides, with the stupidest idea possible, which as a sea pirate in a submarine, you should know better than to shoot grenades inside a submerged vehicle that is pressurized.
Yeah,
it's like shooting a grenade in an airplane. It's just not a good idea.
Not recommended by the flight attendant.
He like blasts Aquaman with this grenade, and it just doesn't affect him because of his Atlantean skin. Atlantean skin is not impervious to human weapons of any kind.
Yeah. And he stands up and goes,
guns or blades or anything like that.
Doesn't he say like ow?
Yeah. Well, I think it knocks him over, but it doesn't like damage him or anything like that, right?
Yeah, I think he just feels like the concussive blast.
Right. So the guy tries to shoot him again, and Aquaman like throws something at him, and the guy hits the side of the sub, this is why it's a bad idea. So then the dad gets pinned under a missile.
Well, he throws the thing at him, and it goes through his shoulder, and it sticks him to the wall.
Yes. Yeah. He throws like a spear or like just like a bar or something like that.
Yeah, right.
It pins him against the wall, and then the grenade happens, and then it starts to fill up with water, and water's rising in there. And, Aquaman's like, you two made this mess, you got yourselves in here, you can get yourselves out, right? He's like, I'm not going to rescue this guy. Even though Black Manta is like pleading with him, like, you can't just leave him here, you know? And so Aquaman fucks off. He's like, I don't give a shit about these guys. I gotta go rescue people.
He says, you've killed innocent people, ask the sea for mercy.
Yeah.
And then he crawls up.
Yeah, which is kind of cool, I guess. But
I like that there's no Affleck Batman situation. It's like,
he's not a cold-blooded murderer.
Yeah, he's just...
But he's also kind of a hard ass.
Yeah,
I agree. So then we get one of the worst line deliveries, which is Black Manta's talking to his dad, and he's trying to get him out of there. Which, this is what I want to know. Don't they have rebreathers? Why can't they just put their helmets on until he can get him unpinned from the wall?
Yeah, because as soon as the water reaches a specific level, isn't that thing going to be pretty easy to move?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how physics
They
work.
came in with helmets. Just put them back on. Anyway, so this guy, he's pinned against the wall, and he's telling his son to leave him behind. He's like, I can't leave you. He's like, you gotta live so you can kill that son of a bitch.
I hate this. I hate everything about this.
And then he's like, no, I'm not gonna do it. And then his dad pulls out a grenade, and he's like, if you don't leave, I'm gonna blow us both up. And it's essentially what he's saying to him.
Yep.
And so then Black Mana's like, damn you, bastard!
His last words to his father are, damn you!
Yeah, and then he swims off without his mask, and, we are led to believe that he gets away. The sub blows up, and Aquaman takes all the survivors that are on a life raft, and he kind of pulls them along, kind of like they're, what's that called when you go tubing? Like they're tubing on a lake or something like that.
Yeah, they all jump into, like, lifeboats and stuff.
Yeah. So they leave up. There's cool parts of that scene, and there's some uncool dialogue deliveries in that scene, and that part I think is unforgivable. However, I don't know if this was part of Zach Has questions, but there is a version in the comics where Aquaman did inadvertently kill Black Mana's dad, and that is why he seeks vengeance against Aquaman, and it's just as simple as that. He just wants to kill Aquaman. He doesn't want anything else. That's one version of Black Mana. The other is he wants to rule the seven seas. He wants to be an Atlantean, but he's a human, so he'll never be accepted.
Okay.
So he does things to Aquaman's family and tries to take the throne of Atlantis. There's two versions. I prefer the one where he just wants to kill him. I think that's as simple as that character motivation needs to be, which is, I'm just trying to get revenge on this dude, and I'll do whatever it takes.
Right.
Goes full Ellie. But not as good.
Yeah, the Black Mana character is interesting to me because I have zero exposure to Black Mana.
Sure.
I like how they set him. I think the acting, Yaya is a good actor.
Yes.
The scene with him and his father is just atrocious, but I think that his motivation is good on pen and paper.
Yeah.
I just hate. We'll get to it.
Yeah.
There's a certain scene that I think is just completely.
Yeah. But I love Black Mana, the character. I've always liked the character design. I think the helmet's so stupid it shouldn't work, but I like that they actually went full comic book with it in this movie. There's been an iteration where Black Mana actually killed Aquaman's son as revenge, too.
Wow.
He killed Mera and Aquaman's baby, which is pretty fucking dark. So he can go to some pretty rough places in the comics, but I think he can be a pretty formidable foe. I like Black Mana as a villain in the comics a lot more than I've ever liked Ocean Master. But Ocean Master's been around longer. But yeah, so that's our introduction to the first villain of this movie. So then our next scene is Django's going out on the deck to wait for Queen Atlanna to come back, and Aquaman jumps out of the water looking very hunky, and he says some type of line quip that I don't remember. Do you remember what it is?
It's like...
something about an old man or something like that, or I know right where I would find you or something
like that.
And then we get one of my favorite scenes, which is Django come on, I'll take you, let's go get some breakfast. And their breakfast is them going to a bar, and they're just housing these big old pints of beer, maybe even bigger than that. Maybe it's a quart of beer.
I cannot breathe underwater, but you can still drink me under the table.
But yeah, I just love that his dad just houses it, and he's like, "You want me to get a sippy cup for you?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "How is it that I can breathe underwater, but you can still drink me under the table?" And we get a little bit of exposition in this scene too, right? There's news articles of the hero dubbed the Aquaman saving people, all this kind of stuff. And
stop, DC, stop.
Yeah, they're trying to make the name happen.
Stop using news reporting as exposition.
Yeah.
It's so lazy. They do it so much in this movie. There's a scene where after the big tidal wave, they're just cutting between all these reporters, and literally one of the reporters is like, "The Atlantis, this is the people, the Atlantis, they're upset with us for polluting their waters," and it's oh god, come on.
Yeah, they do use it a lot in these movies.
Besides the newscasters talking over the TV in the bar scene, this is my favorite part of the movie so far.
Yeah. That sets up his dad being like, this is what your mom wanted, was for you to be a hero and to, protect the land and the sea and stuff like that. And he's like, I don't know. He's like, that's not what I'm doing. I'm just looking out for people when I can. and all that kind of stuff. And then we get this rough group of guys come up, and we think this is going to turn into some type of bar brawl. And the guy pulls out a pink cell phone. He's like, "Can we get a picture with you?" And then we get a series of really funny selfies that look semi-improvised on set, right? It's just Momoa chugging beers and like hanging out with these dudes and stuff like that. It's pretty funny. There's a funny moment in the theater when we saw
I dug it.
Yeah. It still kind of holds up, I think. Let's see what's next. Oh yes. So our next scene is where we get to meet our first batch of true Atlanteans. We get Volko, played by Willem Dafoe. Shout out Green Goblin. We get Orm, who I forget his last name, played by Patrick Wilson.
Do they say his last name?
I don't know if he has a last name.
I think it's just Orm.
Just Orm. He's like Prince. Or Cher. But yeah, so he is the ruler of Atlantis proper. And then we get another sect of the Seven Kingdoms, which is led by Ivan Drago. What's his name? Dolph Lundgren. And his character is King Nereus, I believe.
I don't know.
Anyway.
He's wearing the most atrocious orange wig.
Yeah, he's got a really bad wig job.
Looks like Woody Harrelson in fucking Venom.
They're going to be carnage. And they are meeting in the Council of Elders or something like that. It's there's a lot of abandoned Atlantean sites that we'll see throughout this movie. And Orm's plan and his pitch to him, and Volko's kind of backing him up, is it's time to bring war against the surface world, but the old laws state that you have to have, what, is it more than half? You got to have 4 out of the 7 kingdoms on your side before you can declare war.
Something like that, yeah.
Which I think is kind of a stupid law. Like, if you want one of these kingdoms to go fight and get fucked up, then, like, why wouldn't you? You know what I mean? But anyway, so this is what Patrick Wilson's going to be up to for most of the movie, is trying to convince these people to join his big army.
Yeah.
And the sub starts bombing. It just ruins their conversation. This is another time when they're having a conversation, and missiles and explosions come out of nowhere. And these two groups join forces, and Patrick Wilson goes and he fucks up the submarine, and it blows up. And they use that as a catalyst for King Nereus to join forces with King Orm. So he's like, "Oh man, the surface world is attacking us. Let's go get him." But they don't investigate the sub whatsoever.
They just let it fall.
Which we will find out is a big problem. Any thoughts on this scene?
I don't know. This is where the Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings stuff starts to pop in, where it's like he's like explaining the lore of this place, and it's like the people talking and dealing, and like these kingdoms that are negotiating.
Well, we also get the point where they're having a conversation, and Dolph Lundgren's like, "I know why you want to get the kingdoms together. If you get everyone together, then you could be declared Ocean Master." Boom, boom, boom. And he's like that title, you know. And you could see that Orm's got this look on his face where he's like, "That is what I want," but he says like, "That title means nothing to me," you know, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so again, this was also set up where it's like somewhere in the Indian Ocean or something like that. So then we go back to the bar. And Django's fucked up. And Arthur's trying to get him to the truck. And Mara pops out of the water. We get to see our girl Amber Heard playing Mara.
It's so awkward, too, because he's like the shot is like him putting his dad in the car, but then you slowly see Mara like walking out of the water.
She comes out of the water and she's just dripping.
Yeah.
It's a good look for her. It's one of the first images we saw before they released the trailer, and everyone went nuts because she looks great. But her hair is like 12 times more red in this movie than it was in Justice League.
They turned that saturation way the fuck up.
Way up to make her look like the comic books, which I don't know is completely necessary. It doesn't look horrible, but it looks a lot more like... You remember how Kristen Dunst's redhead in Spider-Man in the first movie is way more red than it is in the other movies?
Yeah.
I'm curious how Aquaman sequels are going to look for her redhead.
I don't know.
But she's coming to plea with Arthur about what her dad and Orm are up to and how they're going to bring an attack on the surface world. And Arthur's going full Jon Snow in the final season of Game of Thrones, where he's like, "I don't want to be king, I don't want any part of this, and I don't give a fuck." You know, he's being the reluctant hero in the classic Joseph Campbell's hero journey.
Right.
She says something about, I think in this is also where we start to hear about his mom a little bit, right? Which is where she's like, "Your mother would have wanted this," and he's like, "Well, I never got to see my mother They don't bring up the fact that we will find out eventually that his mom was supposedly sacrificed to the Trench Kingdom for the atrocities that she committed against Atlantis, which I guess it's just atrocious to go fuck a human.
We don't find out about that until the scene with him and Volko, right?
Yeah, I think so. But I think Orm brings it up at some point too.
Maybe.
Yeah, right before they fight in the volcano. It was like, our mother's dead because of you, and I've always hated you for that.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, we jump back somewhere in the North Sea, and Black Manta is looking at the knife that his dad gave him, and he's sitting on top of his sub. This is a cool looking shot, though.
I do like the shot, yeah.
Where the water starts to kind of glow as a sub underneath that's Atlantean kind of rises just close to the surface, that these guys can walk up. And they use this technique in the movie, which I think is so weird, which is where they make like water holograms, where like the water rises up to human size, and they're able to communicate with each other, like in Star Wars with just standard holograms. And it's King Orm, and he's talking to Black Manta, and we find out that Black Manta and his dad were trying to take over that sub because he made a deal with King Orm to stage this attack on the Atlanteans. So we find out that it's fake. And he's kind of bitching about how Black Manta gave him a sub that was inoperable, and he's like, well, that's because this Aquaman guy showed up and kind of fucked it up. And he didn't mention that his dad caused several explosions inside the submarine, but that's kind of on him.
Yeah.
And I think this is so funny, is that Black Manta is the worst negotiator ever. They keep giving him stuff and money, and he's like, I don't want it. He's like, I just want to kill this guy. And it's like, well, you could take this money and buy
use
things
it to kill this
guy.
Right.
Like, I don't know, backup or a gun, or I don't know, something. But yeah,
I hate the shot too of it's like, take this money, and like one of the dudes reaches through Orm's hologram to drop the money.
Yeah.
And like you can see coins like roll and go into the water.
Just falls into the sea.
So
it's
cheesy.
It's like there's a horrible handoff. But yeah, it's just so funny to me how bad of a negotiator he is. So then we're back to Arthur and his dad driving home in the truck, and we see this massive tidal wave on the coast. They get sucked into the sea, and Arthur's freaking out because obviously his dad can't breathe underwater, and so he's trying to find the truck and his dad. We get to see Mara display her powers, which she doesn't really do much of in Justice League, if I remember correctly.
She just makes a bubble.
Besides making the bubble talk, which, by the way, they don't need to do in Aquaman. They can just speak underwater.
Yep.
That was a lot of people's concerns, was if they had to make a bubble to speak every time in Aquaman, if that movie was going to suck. So, thankfully, they can just talk underwater.
Yeah.
But yeah, so she kind of makes, like a big old wall. She uses her water telekinesis abilities to open things up, and they find their dad, and then she also uses it to pull the water out of his lungs, which I thought was pretty cool. So she's kind of like an aquatic Jean Grey, almost, if you will.
Those powers similar in the comics?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Very much so, yeah. So this is the thing, too, is Mara's way cooler than Aquaman. Her abilities are a lot cooler. Not only can she breathe underwater, like Aquaman can, she doesn't need... I guess she can't communicate with fish, but she can manipulate water like a waterbender, whereas Aquaman is just really strong with the trident and can communicate with fish. I mean, I guess it makes them a good power couple for Under the Sea.
Yeah, right.
I've always thought that her abilities were a little bit cooler than Arthur Curry's, at least in the comic books, because he can't do that. So
interesting. There's no explanation of where her powers came from? She's just powerful?
Just some people have that ability and others don't. It might be her kingdom, like her dad. Maybe that's how it works, but I'm not entirely sure. That's a good question. We'll have to look it up. Mm-hmm. So our next sequence is we get our first series of flashbacks, which is Mara convinces Arthur that because of this tidal wave that they're going to need to go down there and they're going to need to deal with Orm. So him and Mara go to this cliff, and she's like, all right, this is where we got to enter. And he's like, yeah, this is where Volko gave me my first swimming lesson. So we get our flashback of Willem Dafoe de-aged and a younger Arthur Curry about to jump off this cliff.
Yeah.
We get a little backstory for how Atlanteans work, where they are adapted to cold water temperatures and pressures, and in the dark depths of the oceans, their eyes can adapt so they can see in the dark. They get like a night vision and stuff, which is kind of cool, in my opinion.
I think most of this looks really, really good. I think the CG on young Aquaman looks terrible. Like,
is it, or is it just a younger actor? I don't remember.
Well...
Oh, you mean like him swimming?
Him moving around, yeah. It looks like a video game cutscene.
Yeah, sure. But that's kind of really all we get from this scene. And then they dive into the water, and they go to Mara's. She got like a little sub, right? Which I think is kind of interesting. So they get in this little sub to enter into Atlantis, because she's going to kind of sneak them in with her ambassador clearance, because they have a big old wall and customs and all this stuff.
They have to sit in underwater traffic.
Yeah, and we get like this like Tron type soundtrack, and you know, Tron Legacy, where they're driving through. And what do you think of Atlantis?
It's fine. It looks like a bunch of CG bullshit.
Yeah,
but I mean, it's kind of cool. Look, I like how they model their buildings after like jellyfish.
Yeah,
that's cool.
I'm glad that they went full ocean with it. To adapt under the ocean, because we'll see later on that Atlantis used to just kind of look like Asgard.
Yeah, it looks like Asgard.
But like a steampunk Asgard. They got like a robot dude walking around.
Right.
Before Asgard sinks into the ground. Or before Atlantis sinks into the ground. Yeah, so that's kind of what it looks like. You know, it's a good thing that the foundations are okay. We could probably rebuild. Oh, never mind.
Never mind.
Yeah. Alright, so let's see where we're at. Okay. So they are sneaking around in Atlantis. They go to the depths of the city, is where the old buildings are from the old kingdom that sink to the ground.
Right, and there's like, this is another one of those weird like science things. It's like they go into a ship, you can see the water like up against the ship, and they go inside the thing, but there's no water inside the actual ship thing.
Yeah, because they made a bubble.
They made a bubble. So that time they made a bubble.
Volko can make the bubble too. He does that, I guess, because they wanted like a soundproof area, which if they're speaking in a bubble, their voices can't carry through the water. They say something about how it's like hard for people to find them this way. But Mara and Aquaman meet with Volko in this underwater, pirate ship thing, and they're discussing their plan. And Arthur's continuing to be like, I don't want any part of this.
Right.
And Volko and Mara's pitch is that in order for him to be able to become king or unite any of the other kingdoms against Orm, he's going to need the trident from King Atlan, which is the greatest king in the Atlantis history, right? And this one is a traditional trident. It's got 3 prongs. It always bothered me that Aquaman's trident in Justice League had 5. I was like, that's not a trident. That's a Fident.
So this was obviously a retcon.
Yes, they're like, Zack Snyder's trident looks horrible. Let's give him the gold one that he has in the comic books.
I like it. He's like,
I do like that they made it.
You need this trident. And he's like, I already got one of those.
Yeah,
and it like pans over to the thing.
Not like this one, you don't. But I do like that it's his mom's. I do think that's cool.
Yeah.
And we'll see that in a couple minutes. This cool like dichotomy between he wields his mother's and Orm wields his father's trident. I think that's pretty cool because it's just like a classic, meeting up of weapons, kind of like they do in Star Wars, right?
Right.
Like Luke Skywalker's lightsaber versus Kylo Ren's homemade lightsaber, stuff like that.
This is where they get captured, right?
Yes. So then they're having their conversation, and then they get, another explosion happens, and these Atlantean dudes come in, and Volko and Mara just kind of fuck off.
They're like, see ya!
They're like, yeah, he'll be fine.
There's some throwaway line where it's like, you're not supposed to be seen here.
Well, that's what it is. It's like, if they catch you, then King Orm will know that you are not working with him. Because Mara, we will come to find out, is betrothed to Orm.
Yeah.
So she's supposed to be supporting him, and so is Volko, because he's the vizier to the king. So yeah, they get captured.
So yeah, they're like a secret kind of deal. It's interesting, but yeah, it is really comical to see them just kind of like piece the fuck out.
Yeah, they don't help him at all.
No, not at all.
He just gets...
He gets his lunchy.
He gets knocked out, and he wakes up. He wakes up in the middle of like this huge council, which like how were they able to chain him up with all these people around before he wakes up?
And I do like the look of this scene, like the council scene.
Yeah, it's like Camino.
Yeah.
It's like white. There's like tons of people watching.
Yeah.
I think I have a note about this though. I thought it was really stupid that they have chains on him, that are held by 2 dudes. Just
No,
chain him to the floor.
Aren't there 4 dudes that are holding him?
Doesn't
One
matter.
for each arm and then one for each leg.
It's like a dog chain where they're allowed to travel. Why would you do that?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
Everyone can swim. So, like, they have him chained up, and these guys are supposed to hold him back. They only do it for dramatic effect so that he can zoom up to Orm and they can get face to face. But it's just like, if I was the ruler of Atlantis, it's a complete waste of extra chain. Like, I don't know. Why are you doing this?
And the amount of slack that he has, he could theoretically go behind the chains and kill the guys that are holding the chains.
Yeah, like choke them like
Yeah,
Jabba
right.
the Hutt. Yeah. It's,
So,
bad move by Orm,
Yeah,
the
it's
Ocean
terrible.
Master. So in this sequence, we find out that, Orm has always wanted to meet his half-brother, but that he hates him, all this kind of stuff, how he's not the true king, and, Arthur's like, I don't know. I don't really remember it's a cool scene, though. I just don't remember the exact dialogue, but pretty much what happens is that, like,
he says
Volko-
ass whooping at some point.
yeah, well, Volko and Mara are trying to steer it in the way that's like, you don't need to kill this man to be king.
Yeah, right.
And Arthur is kind of poking and prodding at him a little bit, and Ocean Master does want to kill him. So he kind of leads in a way where he's like, oh, you're big and tough. Are you challenging me to, like, trial by combat? And he's like, call it what you want. I call it an ass whooping. And so he's like, cool, well, tomorrow we're going to fight in the Ring of Fire. And he goes, it caps off with a ring of what?
Ring of what?
And so we get a sequence next where Arthur's kind of in the armory and he's suiting up, and Volko comes in and he's like, why would you do that? You walked right into what he wanted. He wants to fight you. And he's like, I fought tons of guys. He's like, I could take him. And he's
Not like
you're,
him.
he's like, you're not in your own element. You're in his element. And he's like, hopefully you still remember how to wield this. And we get another flashback, which is Volko teaching the worst actor in this movie, which is
Yes.
the teenage Aquaman, how to fight with a trident, which sucks because this scene looks really cool.
And in
They're,
theory,
like,
the
fighting
concept
in
of what is happening is cool, too.
Yeah,
It's
they're
like,
fighting in the low tide, and he's like teaching him how to fight Atlantean style.
Yeah.
But this actor just is awful. It's just so bad. Are you saying that they killed my mom?
Yeah, it's...
Because of me? Does she not love me? It's just like...
Oh, it's so bad, man.
He's not very good.
And the fact that they made Willem Dafoe, like, act opposite this kid
Yeah.
is so
Willem Dafoe
depressing.
was like, give me Tobey Maguire again, please.
Anything but this little shit.
Yeah, give me James Franco again, please.
That's terrible.
We do get something that will pay off later, which is Willem Dafoe kind of does this thing where he spins the trident really fast, and it makes like a water shield that's a little impenetrable even to other tridents.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a cool ability, I guess. But yeah, it's kind of derailed by the fact that this guy's such a bad actor. But we find out that King Orm's father sacrificed Queen Atlanta to the Trench Kingdom, which we don't know what they look like quite yet. I think maybe we've gotten a glimpse of them, but...
No, I don't think we do get a glimpse.
Well, we have the backstory to Atlantis.
That happens here?
It's actually, I think, before the council that we just had, at least in my notes.
Really?
Yeah. Yep. It was somewhere in there, and it must have been when they were showing him the trident.
Oh, yeah.
So, real quick, we'll go back. We get the backstory of Atlantis, which is exactly what we said. It was an above-ground steampunked high civilization society, like Wakanda or, something like that. And then they got too greedy, and they used this extra technology, and it caused Atlantis to sink into the ocean.
And first question, what is the technology? What are they trying to do here?
I think the king was using the trident to, like, as an energy source, and they just started to tap into it too much, and that trident's very powerful, and I think it just caused an accident. Because remember, he puts it in a chamber, and they're like drawing power from it. So I think that's what we're led to believe, is that they got too ambitious with using the trident's power, and it caused an accident. But they don't really explain it at all.
Well, my big question is does the accident allow them to breathe underwater?
No, he just says that they learn to adapt.
That's not how life works.
No, because not only do they learn to adapt, a lot of them change their appearance from humans to fish creatures, piranha creatures, crab creatures, except for some of the Atlanteans, like Drago and King Orm, who look like humans still.
Yeah. The line is like, some of us evolved and some of us devolved or whatever, and it's like you see these like horrifying fish creatures.
I guess we're led to believe maybe that the power of the trident did allow that, but it's not explained really. And to that point, like, I'm glad they didn't waste another 15 minutes explaining it, but it would have been nice as opposed to some other scenes.
Yeah, they just kind of gloss over it. They're hoping that you forget about it by the time that the scene is over.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's kind of what happens, and you know, they split into 7 kingdoms, and King Atlan is, you know, he goes into a deep depression, and he just takes the trident and he goes off, he sits down and he dies while he's holding it somewhere.
He loses the will to live.
She lost the will to live. So.
What are we on right now, John?
We're about to have the gladiator match.
About to have the gladiator match. All right. Do we want to take a break before the gladiator match or after the gladiator match?
Oh, we can go before. I'm good with that.
Take a break?
Yeah.
We'll be right after these commercial breaks. We'll be right back with these messages. And we're back. Time for some Ring of Fire action.
Yeah.
The duel. Orm.
Capital T, capital D. So, the Ring of Fire. We get Orm and Arthur facing off against each other in a trial by combat. They're kind of meeting, you know, in this small circular room, and they're discussing the terms essentially, which is, you know, if Orm wins, you know, he has to leave and never come back, right? And that he has to cede the throne. And then Arthur's terms is, if I win, then you can't clear this war on the surface world. We find out that in this scene that Amber Heard is betrothed to Orm. And he's like, go wait in the, you know, the family box, you know, the box seat or whatever.
They put her in like this, like queen garb.
Jellyfish.
Jellyfish.
Like a Queen Amidala jellyfish
yeah,
garb.
Right.
Yeah.
And they walk her away.
Yeah,
and
she swims off. And yeah, so they're going to fight, and so they kind of jump up into the actual arena, we'll see, which is a very big coliseum. And Orm has come up, and he's pumping up the crowd, everyone's going nuts. He's like, my brother from the surface world has challenged me. And then Aquaman shows up, and there's this weird graphic where it shows their pros and cons. Did you read the pros and cons?
What?
Yeah. So when they pop up, there's a big pan back shot, and there's a picture of Orm, and it's a picture of Arthur, and it's like a Street Fighter game where it gives their pros and cons. Did you not see this?
I don't remember this at all.
Okay, so Orm's pros is Atlantean, True Blood. It's like victory of various different battles and like excellent trident wielder, and he has no cons. And Arthur has no pros, and all of his cons say like half-breed, surface dweller, drunk, and that's their stats.
All right, so wait, hold on. Is this graphic that pops up like an edit on the thing, or is it like it's supposed to be like,
it's like
oh,
a
it's
hologram.
like
you can see it. Like everyone in the stadium can see it.
Okay, so it's supposed to be like the stadium, like how you would do it in like a football game.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. I thought for a second you literally just meant like a graphic appears on screen.
It's like ESPN.
Yeah, right. That's what I thought you meant. And I was like, well, how the fuck did I miss
5 TDs.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they got this graphic. They lock tridents, and then the fight is off. Pretty much Orm's getting the upper hand for most of it.
Yeah.
Arthur's instincts kick in every now and then. But Willem Dafoe comments like, this isn't a trial by combat, this is a public execution. Like, Orm's gonna fuck him up. And Ocean Master breaks Arthur's mom's trident, or actually both of their mom's tridents. Before they were discussing how they're each wielding their parents' trident and how Orm's always hated him because it was the reason why their mother was banished and sacrificed. And Arthur's like, I've always wanted to meet my little brother, and then I found out what a huge dick you were, which is actually one of my favorite parts. And yeah, so they're just having this fight, and Aquaman gets bested, and his trident gets broken, and it looks like he's about to get slayed. And Mera did not want him to die, so she kind of snuck off, got her submarine, and shoots Orm with her abilities and kind of like tunnel of like water, like plows him in there to get him away from Arthur.
Yeah.
And they get in the sub and they race off, which is huge treason. We'll come to find out. It's treason by death for her to do this to help him out. I think everyone probably knows that it's her, right? Especially Orm. And they are getting chased
he gives her the bracelet before the thing, right?
And they're getting chased by Orm and his little cronies and their little TIE fighter type underwater things. And Arthur and Mara are able to get over the wall relatively unharmed, but then they do get shot by Orm, and their ship crashes into the lava. They get out at the last second, and Arthur signals the whale, and they climb into the humpback whale's mouth. And that way the Atlanteans can't continue to track them. And so she asks, like, where did you learn this? He's like, I got it from Pinocchio.
Yeah. I don't know, man. So did the fight do anything for you? I think it's okay.
I think it's pretty cool. It's like it reminded me a lot of Tron. It also reminded me of a worser version of Ragnarok.
Yeah.
But like it's tons of gladiator fights. There's like a lot of them right now in comic book movies. There's gladiator fights in Black Panther. There's gladiator fights there's trial by combats all over the place. In Game of Thrones, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So it was fine.
Yeah, it's fine. The getaway
I like
is
the
really
octopus
cheesy.
with the drums is my favorite part.
Got you some trivia with the octopus there.
Okay.
While I'm pulling this up, he's. Do you know the name of the thing?
The octopus?
Yeah.
No. Max Rebo.
So, during the duel between Arthur and Orm, an octopus plays a drum solo. According to writer and director James Wan, the octopus is Topo, Aquaman's octopus sidekick from the 1950s and 60s, who was able to play music instruments.
Yeah, I know Topo.
Wan was initially unsure about putting Topo in this movie, but was inspired to do so after watching Mad Max Fury Road, saying, quote, "If that film could have a guy playing a flaming guitar, I'm going to have an octopus drummer in mind." That's
a pretty cool hot take, actually. Well, fuck it.
Fuck it, why not? I guess.
Topo the octopus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, fight, okay. Their escape in the ships,
Yeah, it's fine. Kind of dismissive.
Yeah.
But he kind of explains to Mara that he's able to communicate with the whale, because she's like, how did you know that? Because, like, the whale tells him that they're gone. And she's like, how do you know? He's like, I've just kind of always been able to do it. Which is like, maybe that should have been how they introduced that you can talk to fish. But yeah, so he discusses what their next move is, and they're like, well, Volko said that the trident was last seen in the Kingdom of the Deserters, right? And so they got a little canister from Volko that he says is like a message to where the location of the trident is, but they need to go to the Kingdom of the Deserters to access it. So then we get Zach's least favorite part, and mine, probably. Maybe besides
Is this the Black Mana scene?
No, this is them coming out of the water.
Oh!
Yeah. So we get this moment of Arthur and Mara popping out of the water to a Pitbull cover of Toto's Africa, because they're in the Sahara. Yeah. I remember you in the theater being like, fuck this movie. I remember that very vividly.
It's terrible.
Get fucked movie or something like that is what you said.
It doesn't make any... It's so... They're in the Sahara. So they play Africa by Toto, but it's also a Pitbull remix that doesn't fit with anything in the movie thus far.
Nope.
They haven't played any other song like that,
but now they're about to.
Yeah, all of a sudden, the movie becomes like a globe-trotting National Treasure style movie, and they use like these really weird music interludes, and I don't know, man. Yeah, this whole transition, everything, like, starting now is where I start to have the most problems with this movie.
Yeah. So they pop out of the water, and they get on an airplane, because they found an airport when they got out of the water. And I have a note that just says Desert Mara as a snack.
Redheads, gotta love them.
But yeah, so they're in this cargo plane. It kind of reminded me of the Temple of Doom a little bit. There's like animals in the back and stuff like that, and they're just gonna go out and fly over the Sahara until they get above the Kingdom of the Deserters, which Mara has like this little tracking device beacon to like locate where the Kingdom of the Deserters is supposed to be. I don't know how she got that necessarily. Maybe it's like an Atlantean compass or something like that. But then we also get another scene of Black Mana sitting on the beach somewhere in the Indian Ocean again, or something like that. And the Atlanteans come out of the water, and Orm does his water holograph again, and he's like, my brother has fled to the surface world. I can't chase after him because I'm too busy assembling my armies, but you can. I'll pay you double to kill him. And he's like, I don't want the money. I just want to kill him. And he's like, well, I'm giving you a legion of my finest troops at your command, as well as prototype Atlantean weaponry. One of which is this plasma cannon that converts water into plasma beams, which has these 2 big eye holes on the cannon, so you can clearly tell where
we're going with this. Yeah.
And he tests it out by shooting a rock. And then
not just a rock, like a fucking mountain.
Yeah.
It looks like a giant mini island, and it blows up. The whole thing blows up.
It's gone. Yep.
Later on in the movie, when he uses the beams, I don't recall it doing that much damage.
It doesn't disintegrate things.
Yeah, right.
So Black Mana, all of this, we should also point out that all of the armor and stuff that he gets is white, which we know is not his style. So we get our scene of the broke-ass Tony Stark, and he's modifying this armor.
Yeah.
So what do you think about this scene?
This is the worst scene in the movie.
This is the worst scene in the movie.
I don't know if I can say that.
More than the Africa thing?
Africa, well, that scene isn't terrible. The music is terrible. The editing is terrible.
Yeah.
But this scene with Black Mana building this armor, it's got like this grungy pop song behind it, and he's tinkering away at this thing. And
I don't mind.
I'm gonna need a bigger fisheye or something at the end.
That's not what he says.
What does he say?
He says I'm gonna need a bigger helmet.
Helmet.
I don't mind the tinkering. I do not like the musical cover to it.
Music sucks.
Yeah. So this is another musical goof in 2 back-to-back scenes. But I don't mind seeing him make the armor himself, because I do think it is important to show that he's a technical proficient dude, as opposed to him just showing up from getting the armor to it being Black Mana armor.
I have no problems with the idea of this.
Yeah.
The execution, and even the way that they show him building it. It looks like they were like,
He's gets the goop on his hand.
Yeah, it's kind of slapsticky. I don't know. It's bizarre. It made me think of they were. I guess we're getting off. Yeah, we're getting off the highway, so we're gonna take another break here in a second. But it reminded me of them trying to do an Iron Man sequence, where he builds his weaponry. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, just bizarre. But
when we come back, we'll find out what happens to Arthur and Mara.
More after these messages from our spots. So what are our heroes up to now?
Well, first we should talk about our sponsor.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Aquaman is brought to you by, what's it called, Pantene.
Pantene, the shampoo?
Yeah, so you can have those luscious flows underwater.
Yeah.
Now, alright, so...
Momoa's hair looking on point, though, the whole movie.
Heck yeah, man. So we come back. Mara and Aquaman are in the plane. Her device starts to go off saying the Deserter Kingdom is right below them. So she just jumps out without a parachute. And the guy's like, she didn't have a parachute. And Aquaman goes, redheads, gotta love him. Wahoo!
I hate that line then, I hate it now. It's terrible.
Jumps out of the plane, and they both just crash into the sand. But because of their Atlantean DNA, I guess they don't get injured, which is cool. And they're hiking around in the desert, and they're arguing about how they're lost. And she's blaming that this is the problem with the land, is that it's all like this. He's like, it's not all like the desert, and he's talking about the good things,
right?
Which I think is kind of cool.
So we got cities, and there's this thing called lakes. You'd love them.
It's like tiny little oceans.
So that joke worked. That was pretty funny.
Yeah. So then he falls right through the sand, into this tunnel, and so does she. She jumps in, and they fall down into the Deserter Kingdom, which is it's this underwater, or this under the ocean ruin. What used to be the ocean.
Yeah, I know we've talked about. I vaguely remember bringing this up during our original review, and I know it's been touched on to death, in every discussion about this movie online or whatever. But the music that they decide to play from them walking in the Sahara to when they get to the actual thing, where it's do 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 do. It's it felt so dated. It's like a musical thing that you'd hear in a 90s or 2000s rom-com.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Yeah, there's some musical choices that I don't know if I'm on board with.
Nope.
So they're in the Deserter Kingdom. They find the armory.
Yeah.
They see the mold that created King Atlan's trident.
Yeah.
And they find this gigantic system of gears where the disc that Volko gave them perfectly fits in there. But nothing happens. And they can't get it to play. And she's like, well, I don't understand. And he's like, it's been collecting dust since before the Sahara was a desert, which is when she realizes that the Kingdom of the Deserters did used to be under the water before they was there. So there's this kind of cool moment where she plucks the sweat from his brow and turns it into a single water droplet, and then saturates this disc, and the whole system comes online. And it plays a hologram of Graham McTavish, who, I don't remember it word for word, but he gives them the location of where they're supposed to go, which, and like a rhyme for figuring out where the trident is located.
Right.
And after that happens, this tiny little glass bottle comes out, and there's a little note inside with a map that points them to Sicily. And Amber Heard takes the disc that Volko gave them and smashes it so that nobody can find out where they're going. She doesn't know that she's being tracked by her bracelet. Mama was like, shouldn't we have listened to it again first? And she's like, I memorized it, didn't you?
Didn't you memorize it?
He goes, yeah, something tried it. Just being the big old dummy.
Oh, Aquaman, you silly boy.
You silly
boy. The glass bottle thing. I think it was funny. It was like he takes the bottle out and gingerly sets it down. Uh-huh. I feel like Aquaman would have just taken the note out and smashed the bottle. And then they would have never known where to go.
Yeah. Well, so then they go to Sicily.
Yep.
And there's that rom-com sequence that you mentioned earlier. That
has this is up there and also in the running for the worst scene in this movie.
You don't like her eating a rose?
No, and
I like it.
Tossing a coin into the fountain and making fish things happen, and there's this terrible song that's playing.
I'm not a big fan of the song, but I kind of like the scene. So it's like a fish out of water thing where she's just doesn't know how to fit into society.
Look at this stuff, isn't it neat?
She's a little mermaid. But I like the rose thing a lot. I think that was pretty funny, where he gives it to her and she thinks it's a snack, so she eats it, and then gives it back to him, and he takes a bite of it too. I thought that was kind of cool. He's like, he's gonna play along. He's along for the ride.
He's trying to get that poon in Italy. He's trying to clap some cheeks in that countryside.
Yeah. So they're kind of exploring around, and that's kind of all that happens in the scene. We don't get anything beyond that besides just that montage of them doing stuff. So then we flash back into the ocean.
Yep.
And Orm and Volko have arrived at the Kingdom of the Fishermen, where it's our guy, I don't remember this actor's name, but he's in Guardians of the Galaxy and Gladiator and all that stuff, but he's playing the Kingdom of the Fishermen, which is they're these scaly mermaid people, and they're known to be cowards.
Is it Jaimin Hamsu?
Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce it.
Cool.
They're known to be cowards, and Orm's like, you should join forces with us, and he's like, I think we should think of a better way to deal with the surface dwellers. And he's like, well, I should have known you would have been a coward. And Orm murders him in cold blood, therefore making the king's daughter in charge. And he kind of threatens her into being like, you should join forces with me or I will take them by force. So he's got 3 armies out of 7 now. So he just needs 1 more, right?
Process of elimination.
I guess so. So then they're back in Sicily. And Aquaman gets, a little notice for where they're supposed to go. It's up on this, old ruin where there's some broken down statues and stuff. It's all very common in the Mediterranean area. They kept the glass bottle, though, remember?
They kept it.
Yeah. So they kept the glass bottle and the note. And they're looking around, and they remember the riddle says something about, one of the true kings will show the way. And
this man wasn't a true king.
Aquaman knows his history, apparently, because his dad wanted him to learn history as well as Russian, apparently.
Yeah.
So
all the essentials.
Yeah.
History, Russian.
Mm-hmm. Also Romulus, which is the statue that he needs to place the glass bottle in, because it's perfectly held up to the eye. That should have been your clue, as well as the fact that it's the only one facing the ocean.
Yep.
But anyway,
I have that in my notes.
Yeah. So he puts
so dumb.
He puts the bottle in Romulus's hand, and you can look through Romulus's eye through the bottle. And it'll show you a map between 2 rocks, which is their entrance to the ocean, which we will come to find out where that is in a little bit. And that's where the trident is supposed to be. So they have their heading, He has Mara look. She checks it out, and then she falls off, and he catches her, and it looks like they're about to make out. But then another moment is ruined by an explosion.
Black Manta coming to save the movie, baby.
Black Manta pops up, and he's got like these jetpack things now. He's got the full headgear, man. He's looking good. And he gets up there, and Aquaman's like, "Who are you?" He's like, "Maybe this will belong," or something like that. And he kind of
ching. He does the thing with the blade on the arm, and it starts.
Kind of charges up the back of his head, and he starts blasting eye plasma beams at everything.
Just wrecking that countryside.
This fight scene ensues, where Mara is kind of dealing with some of the soldiers that he brought with them, and then Aquaman and Black Manta are fighting. They're kind of jawing at each other, and Aquaman does find out that he's the guy from the sub. And they're going at it, and during their fight, I think Black Manta lets it hit that she's being tracked. What do you think of the fight?
This is one of my favorite parts of the movie.
Yeah.
Because, like we were talking about at the very beginning, it's a really cool stylized fight in broad daylight. You get to see all the little steps. I like that there's like kind of the dual planes of action. Black Manta is fighting Aquaman, and they're going at it with their own little thing, and then Mara is running from the soldiers. I really love the sequence where the guy is like tracking her, like, and then he just like turns and runs through walls to get to her. And however they filmed that, like they must have done. There's some CG fuckery there and there, but there must have been some like multiple edits, and like different scene shot. But like I really love it. He's just running through the walls of these people's houses.
Sicilians,
yeah, I know, it's terrible.
They're gonna be recovering from that for years. Those houses have probably been passed down for generations.
What I did like another moment where he falls into the first house and there's the old woman knitting, and he's like, doesn't he say something to her in Italian?
Is the guy running?
No, Jason Momoa.
I think so. Yeah, he does.
He's like Mi scusi or something like that, and then he gets kicked out the window. Yeah, I like that bit.
I thought it was cool too that they incorporate that Manta is using these Atlantean weapons like the sword, and he also imbued it into his knife. It looks like because he's actually able to wound Aquaman this time.
Yeah,
and I love that he stabs him with the sword, and then later on in their fight he stabs him with the Manta knife in the same wound because it's an exposed area. Because otherwise that knife would have broke on impact. So that was really cool, like attention to detail. It's just a really well choreographed fight.
Yeah, the choreography is.
And whether it was Yaya or whatever stuntman had to actually wear the Black Manta helmet, like kudos, because that thing looks like it's the size of a trash can. So,
I bet it's pretty lightweight. Honestly,
I'm sure it's very lightweight, but still, like the vision impairment would probably be pretty crazy for choreographing a fight. Whereas like Jason Momoa just gets to wear like baggy pants all the time. So
yeah, in this whole scene he's wearing like linen.
Yeah, he looks like exactly.
He looks like Nathan Drake.
Or like Aladdin.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a really cool fight scene. But
the only thing I don't like about it is what I think you're about to talk about, which is how the fight ends.
Yeah, where he just like kicks him, right?
Well, like doesn't he like blow him up or something? Like he throws one of his things back at him, and then he hits the cliffs as he like bounces down.
I hate that he bounces down. Yeah.
It's so.
I don't remember exactly how he gets knocked over the side. It might be an explosion, like reverberated back at him. But yeah, Black Manta gets blown over the side of the cliff, and he kind of falls down into the ocean, and he just gets banged up along the way like a ping pong ball. It's almost like a Donald Duck cartoon.
Yes.
Bing, ding, 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 yeah.
As he falls in the water.
It's a real shame, and that's the last we see of him until the mid-credit tease, which is unfortunate. But
I totally forgot to watch the credit scenes.
I got them for you.
I totally forgot about the credit scenes.
There's only one.
As soon as the movie ends, I was like, all right, good night.
Yeah.
I'm going to bed.
It's a horrible mid-credit scene. But, so the fight ends, and Aquaman's kind of wounded. And with his, like, last breath before he passes out again, he tells Mara that she's being tracked. She puts it together that it's the bracelet, and she steps on it and smashes it.
Yep.
So.
And this little, like, blue aura flies around.
Yeah, exactly. So then, after this, Aquaman wakes up, and they're on this boat, and she's like playing the flute like it's Legend of Zelda Wind Waker.
She's summoning like shit.
But she kind of like gave him first aid, and he's like, "Where'd you get the boat?" And I do like this part where she's like, "Are the boats in the marina not for public use?" And he's like, "No." She's like, "Oh." well, then I definitely stole it.
Yeah. I do like the first aid is just seaweed.
Yeah, pretty cool.
So
just slaps them on there and it'll heal them up.
Yep.
So then we flash over to Orm is kind of like in his ship. And they're making their way. I think they're making their way to the brine. Is that what they're gonna fight next?
The next thing I have on here in my notes is just the trench. But something happens with Orm.
There's a short sequence where Orm finds out that Vogel betrayed him, and he has him locked up in the brig, but he wants him to have a view. So he's like, take him to the other ship. I want to make sure that my vizier has a view.
Right.
So yeah, he figures it out. This might be when he's starting to put on the Ocean Master garb. If I remember correctly.
Call me Ocean Master.
So then the ship that Aquaman and Mera are on, they're following their heading they got from the glass bottle. It's dark, it's stormy, it looks like our drive last night into Lincoln, Nebraska. And they're kind of just on the boat, and this is when James Wan got super giddy so he could do his horror stuff. Because Mera turns around, and one of the trench creatures is sitting on the side of the ship. And before we talk about the scene, I wanted to ask what you thought about the trench creature design.
They're fun.
Yeah.
They're spooky looking.
Yeah,
they're gross.
They're blind. They're piranhas.
Yeah.
They're like piranhas mixed with like fish alien from like the movie Alien type creatures almost.
A little bit of Demogorgon thrown in there.
A little bit of Demogorgon thrown in there. Yeah, big sharp teeth, claws, stuff like that. So this kind of battle ensues on the ship, almost like Jaws, where like they have to make their way into like the bridge of the ship, and they're like busting through the glass. And
right.
Momoa finds a box of flares and starts, throwing them around. And because they're from the abyss, they're afraid of light, which is a really cool technique to be able to light this dark scene.
Yes.
And so he's like, we're right underneath where I think we should be. We should just jump because this boat's getting wrecked because there's like creatures all over it. So they dive over the side, and there's this really cool angled shot of like just like the beam of red light from the flares moving through like this horde of stuff, and like the sound design's like really creepy, and they use like horror music that's like, and like you can see them going lower and lower, and then occasionally it'll pop back to them like from a very close-up shot, and they're just kind of like relighting flares and stuff. This is one of my favorite scenes.
This is the best scene of the movie.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Stem to stern, from the production design of the storm to the creatures to the sound to the music, the shot. They should have never shown this in the trailer, by the way. But that shot of like the camera going down as you see them with like all of the trench people.
So I was really pleased when I saw it.
It's amazing. It's perfect. This is one of those things in the movie where I'm like, this is brilliant. This is a stroke of absolute genius, and this is what they should do if they're smart with the sequel. Because well, they've talked about the trench or whatever, but I don't know if I don't know how they're gonna fucking make a movie out of the trench. But Aquaman 2 could feature something like this, where Atlantis is cool as a concept, but it's so clean and futuristic. It's like Avatar. What would really be cool is to take this gritty Jason Momoa and put him in a situation where it's like
terrifying.
It's terrifying, yeah. Like, and especially if James Wan's coming back for the second one,
he is. They already signed him.
Just make it a little bit spookier. Don't be afraid to go to like the deep, dark depths of the sea.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? This is so awesome. I love everything about this. This entire scene, from when you see the boat and the storm to when they get to like the whatever
cyclone.
The cyclone. It's all great. This is like 5 to 8 minutes of just pure comic book bliss. I love it.
Yeah, it was
I
great.
love it.
And this is like, even that shot of them swimming down is like right out of the comic book panel from the Jeff Johns book.
Okay.
Of them fighting the trench. The trench was a really cool, that was a Jeff Johns creation, so I was really glad that made it into the film universe for sure. Because I think it's a really cool idea where it's like Aquaman's solo villains like Ocean Master and Black Manta, it's cool, they can have fun fight scenes, but I like the fact that Aquaman has to deal with like, what are the scariest creatures in the ocean that no one else can deal with because they don't breathe underwater.
Sure.
And the trench was something that Jeff Johns came up with, and is essentially just like, let's take the concept of Alien, Ridley Scott's horror masterpiece, and let's put it under the water. But there's like a shit ton of them, and it's just like, I think in the comics they live in the Bermuda Triangle. So
gotcha.
But they're off the coast of Sicily. So like, don't go swimming in Sicily.
Don't go swimming in the Italy's. Yeah, you're gonna have a bad time.
The trench are there. But not only are the trench there, but they get to this cyclone, and the light is bright enough that it keeps the trench away, but they don't have anywhere else to go. So they just enter the cyclone because they're assuming that that's the power of the trident, and they get taken into what is called, I think it's called the Lost Kingdom, right? Or like the Fallen Kingdom or something.
The way they explain it is that it's the
Earth.
center of the Earth.
Yeah, so it's like Journey to the Center of the Earth. Very much, there's a lot of Jules Verne heavily influenced stuff with both Atlantis and the center of the Earth here. There's like dinosaurs and things flying around.
Yeah.
And Amber Heard gets pulled out of the water. She's about to get eaten by like the big Mosasaurus from Jurassic World. And she gets rescued by this trench-looking creature thing. But as she's dragged onto the shore, we see that this person is just wearing a disguise, and we get the helmet off, and it's Nicole Kidman, who's Queen Atlanta, who's still alive. Because she was sacrificed to the trench. She must have fought her way here. And Aquaman gets to see her, and they get reunited, and she knows that it's Arthur somehow, even though he's a grown man.
Well, it's spiritual connect. I don't know. That didn't.
It's not a big deal.
I can look past that one, because it's like they spend 2 minutes staring at each other, and they're like, "Mom,
Arthur."
Where is it? Nicole Kidman immediately accepted the role of Atlanta when writer and director James Wan said that she could wear, quote, mother of pearl and be a mermaid warrior, end quote.
Interesting.
There's also, I was going to read this earlier. Maybe we'll end it with this, but yeah, we'll end it with this trivia fact. I got a nugget for you that I don't know if you know.
Is it about Julie Andrews?
No, it's about James Wan.
Okay, cool.
Numerous underwater waterfalls are seen in this movie. This is an actual phenomenon. The ocean is made up of 2 different layers of water: warm, light water, cold, dense water. The difference in densities means the layers are separate and causes the heavier cold water to fall, forming a waterfall. So underwater waterfall. That's all, folks.
Yeah. Wow. You okay?
I'm good. I'm having a stroke here. Yeah. The Atlanta reveal is interesting, but I really hate the costume choice.
Oh, like where she's wearing trench and crab pieces?
Yeah. It just looks so goofy.
Yeah, it's very goofy. But she ditches it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So they're all kind of hanging out, and they're healing Mara up a little bit because she got kind of banged up. And they're finding out that Queen Atlanta's been down here for a long time. And she's tried to escape multiple times, as well as tried to retrieve the trident, which is guarded by this mythological beast of Atlantean legend, which I'm just going to call the Kurgan because I don't remember what it's called. It's like the Karath or something.
Okay.
It's this big monster, and Orm brought it up earlier before the Ring of Fire, if I remember correctly. So, she talks about how only the one true king should be able to get it, and he's like, I don't know if I can do that. And they're like, well, you've always been something greater. And he's like, well, what's greater than a king? And we get the classic, a hero. The hero that Atlantis deserves, and maybe the one it needs, right? So Aquaman agrees to go past this waterfall and into the area where the trident is supposed to be. So it's like this really darkly lit series of like ruins and pillars. It's a really cool setup, I actually think. And he gets close to the trident, and he starts to hear this thing speaking to him about how he's unworthy and how this beast has been guarding tridents, and she's killed many who have tried to claim the trident. And she just starts to kind of knock him around a little bit. And he talks about how he isn't worthy. He starts talking back to her with his telepathic communication. And how he's not worthy, he just wants to save those that he cares about, and he wants to protect, the people that are innocent. And this monster is like, no one has been able to commune with me since King Atlan. So we get to see that Arthur is the true heir because he has that specific ability that is only passed down from king's blood, apparently.
Right.
And Orm does not have this. So she allows him. She says, if you can pull the trident from his grip, you can have it. If not, I'm going to eat you. And he is able to yank it out of that dead boy's grip. And not only does he yank that out of the grip, he also puts on the dead man's clothes.
Yep.
Which is the classic orange scaly shirt with
the
green gloves
trousers,
and green boots and stuff, and the A belt, which I guess is either supposed to stand for Atlantis or Atlan, even though in the comics it originally was just A for Aquaman.
Yeah.
And we get the money shot of him coming out of that waterfall, and he's dripping wet, and he plants that trident down, and the music kicks in, and that was in the final trailer, and I really didn't want to see that before the movie.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to see the costume if it would make it, but is what it is.
Julie Andrews as Giant Sea Monster for your consideration for the Oscars 2020.
Yeah, poor Julie Andrews, man.
I mean, it's weird that they got her as that bit part. It makes no sense.
Yeah,
it makes absolutely no sense. She must have just been free that day. They were like, yo, you want to...
It's just such an interesting choice for a monster's voice.
Yeah.
You could have gotten something a little creepier where she's like, this is Mary Poppins. It's Mary Poppins, y'all.
I'm Mary Poppins, y'all.
Yeah, so he comes out of there, and he's ready to go, baby. He's got the trident, he's got his armor, and we get to our next scene, which is Orm preparing to launch an assault on the Brine Kingdom, which are the crab people. And this is where the Battle of the Five Armies kicks in.
Yeah, I don't like this at all.
And this is where I kind of lost some of my interest. It's just a big CGI underwater fuckfest.
And it's hard to tell who's who and what side's what side.
It's hard to tell who's who. There's all kinds of sea monsters fighting each other. Ocean Master's fully got his helmet on, and we get the moment where he's like, "Call me Ocean Master." Yeah. But midway through the battle, Arthur comes up out of the ground with the Julie Andrews sea monster.
Yeah.
And this thing just starts wrecking shit. Not only is he doing that, Arthur's commanding the sea creatures like dolphins and whales and sharks, and he's commanding the trench. And this battle just quickly goes to hell as people begin to realize that he's the one true king. Mara is able to convince her dad that Arthur is the true king, that he wields the trident, and he sees that if he commands the sea, that is his true king. But he's not going to, step into the fight. As well as in the middle of this battle, we get our Will and Elizabeth Turner smooch in the midst of the battle where stuff's like blowing up around them, and Aquaman and Mara are making out in the middle. And he's going to go have to face off against Orm, which is the cool part of the battle.
Yes, so the final fight, I think, is the most Watchmen that this movie gets.
Yeah.
But it's okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did you want to talk about it before we give opinions?
The duel?
Yeah, the duel.
Yeah. So I do like that. I think in the battle, Volkel tells him to take him to his element, so they call back to the fact that their first fight in the Ring of Fire wasn't. And they fight on like a capsized ship, and I like how there's like that big propeller kind of spinning around. I thought that was pretty neat, like little backdrop. But yeah, him and Orm fight on there, and it ends the same way that the Ring of Fire fight ended, which is he breaks the trident that Orm is wielding.
Yep.
Fucks him up. And everyone's watching, so they're able to see. It's kind of like the end of Lion King, where like everyone is witnessing Scar like cowering out, and like the real king is revealed.
Also some Black Panther in there.
A little bit of Black Panther stuff too, yeah. The fight ends where Orm wants to be killed, and the mom comes up and is talking to them, and she tells them that she sided with Arthur and that he's made some mistakes and lost his way, but he doesn't get killed.
No.
So he gets sent to prison, and Volkel tells him, another callback. Volkel's just cracking up, right? He's like, give him a room with the view. It's like, suck a dick, Orm. Ocean Master, my ass. I think they broke the Ocean Master helmet too, right? It gets knocked off.
Yeah, it gets like knocked off, and I think that it's like kind of like cut down one side or something like that. It looks mangled.
Yeah. So it all ends with everyone looking, and Mara goes, now presenting to you King Arthur, and everyone cheers, and he goes, what do I do now? And she just says, be their king, and he goes, this is gonna be fun, and then he gets up there, and he does his little Polynesian haka, which I thought was kind of cool. Yeah, and then he sticks the trident up, and everyone's cheering, and that's kind of how that really ends. And then we get a really cool, I think, tag, which is Django's waiting on the dock.
Yeah, this is good. This is
good.
good.
The mother finally returns, and she's at the end of the dock. Like, he walks off, and he hears a splash, turning around to think it's Arthur, and it's her. I thought that was really cool, a nice little reunion. And so while they're doing that, we get another voiceover where it calls back to the beginning. My father was a lighthouse keeper. My mother was a queen. Their love saved the world. And he's like talking about how he's the protector of the deep. And then we get a very Sam Raimi-esque I Am Aquaman ending where he jumps out of the water, and that looks
terrible.
It really, I think it would have been cooler if it would have ended with just his mom and his dad embracing.
Yes.
He kind of like is off on the side, like holding the trident, and he just kind of like he's just kind of like witnessing it. And
I
that would have been
100%
really cool.
agree with you, John. That final shot, because it's in like kind of like slow motion too.
Yeah, that would have
totally out of this world. It's ridiculous.
I really think it should have just ended with his parents reuniting.
Yeah,
that would have been really cool.
I also think. Do you think that my father was a lighthouse keeper, my mother was a queen? Is the with great power comes great responsibility of this of the Aquaman movies?
I
like
fucking hope
in
so.
each Aquaman movie starts with that line.
That would be wonderful. That would be wonderful.
The one thing we didn't really
it's so
talk.
memeable for me and you.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
Every time Zach picks up the phone when I call him, I just drop that line on him.
It's yeah. Oh boy. Well, Aquaman 2.
Well, let's
do we have any news
scene
about
real quick?
Yeah,
and
right.
then
The
we'll
credits.
Wrap
credits,
up our
credits,
thoughts.
yeah.
So
I also want to ask you about Patrick Wilson, about him, because did we talk about him as his performance in the movie?
Not at all. We have not talked about it.
Do you like it at all?
Not really.
Yeah, me neither. I find him incredibly boring and dull.
I just don't think he's selling it quite enough in the same way that Yaya is selling his character. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think of the two villain performances, Yaya's is better. And I don't know if it's because Yaya's a better actor or not. But at least he's, like, going for it.
I think it's because Yaya fits more with the tone of the movie.
Yeah, Patrick Wilson
more
is
like,
playing I'm just
more
here
like,
because James promised me a paycheck.
Yeah, I think also Patrick Wilson seems to be playing the role of Orm, kind of like Loki in Thor. Like, not Avengers Loki from the first Thor movie.
Yeah.
Where Yaya is playing, like, Claw from, like, Age of Ultron. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, or
like
Black
that,
Panther.
Yeah, something like that. Like that kind of over-the-top villain. And so one of them feels too serious to be in an Aquaman movie, and the other one feels so silly that it kind of fits.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm not too high on it. However, maybe they'll make an adjustment for the sequel because he's definitely coming back. They did talk about it in Fandom. They talked about Aquaman 2 a little bit, how it's going. They did. I don't know if you heard this. He said they're going to touch into more, like, politically relevant topics. Is what he said the sequel is going to deal with.
He being James Wan.
Yes. So I don't know if that involves Black Lives Matter and from the Black Manta side of things, or climate change from the Ocean Master Atlantean side of things, because they kind of did that in this one, in like these news reports where they're chucking up warheads, they're chucking up subs, they're chucking up trash that we've been polluting the ocean.
They
for
threw
years
up
with.
our trash. This is a direct message.
Yeah. So I don't know what that necessarily means. I'd be curious to find out.
Yeah,
but
same.
Our mid-credit scene is a kind of another setup potentially to a plotline in the sequel, sort of, which is the very same guy that we just talked about, who was on the news talking about how it's in a direct message from the Atlanteans, is this, this science guy that was kicked out of various institutes for being too crazy about his beliefs about Atlantis, and he picks up Black Manta, who's floating on a piece of driftwood, which I don't know how he got on the driftwood when he smashed onto rocks, but it is what it is.
Well, whatever. Yeah.
His suit's fucked up, and he's passed out in this dude's house, and the guy's trying to study the suit and the helmet specifically, and he accidentally activates it in the same way Black Manta did, where it shoots a hole in the roof, and Yaya's like, I wouldn't do that if I were you, and the guy's like, this is Atlantean, how did you get it? And then Black Manta says, I'll tell you everything you need to know if you can help me find him. And the reporter, or the guy who's on the news is like, who? And he's like, throws the knife at who is Aquaman on the newspaper. It's like a black silhouette with a question mark.
I very vaguely remember this.
Yeah, it's not a great tease.
I might have to pull this up on YouTube after we close this show.
Yeah, you should watch it. But yeah, it's just setting up that like he's going to keep hunting Aquaman, and this guy wants to find out about Atlantis. So maybe that guy will be more of an integral part in the second one. It's an actor that we've seen in a bunch of stuff. He plays Kim Jong-un in The Interview.
That guy. Yeah,
he's Asian Jim in The Office.
Yeah. I know
fresh
exactly.
off the boat.
I don't forget the guy's name, but I know exactly who you're talking about. Yeah, he's a big guy. He's in Ant-Man and the Wasp too. Yeah. So
I just can't remember the actor's name. We can look it up later.
Right.
But yeah, so that's all of our scenes. So you want to do our 3 questions, or do you want to talk sequel first?
I don't know. I mean, like, I don't really have much to say about a sequel. I really hope that when the sequel does come out, like I said with the trench stuff, I really hope that they focus on making it more of a focused narrative, not all this global, like, different warring families. In fact, I want to be less Thor and more, like, less Thor 1 and more Thor Ragnarok.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Make it goofy?
Make it a little... Well, it doesn't have to be goofy, but Aquaman's inherently a silly character.
Yeah, make it more aware.
Make it self-aware, and I liked the horror aspects. I think that's a really cool contrast. Like, you have the super silly, charismatic beefcake, and then you have him facing, like, really terrifying odds. I think that's the direction that they should go.
Yeah. I'm into that.
Is there anything else that you would like to see?
I want to see is in the Justice League cartoon, and this is spoilers for the Justice League cartoon. If you haven't seen it, it came out 20 years ago. But there's an episode with Aquaman featured in it where Orm is betraying Aquaman by... There's underwater magma that's moving slowly down this slope. Orm places Aquaman and Mara's son at the bottom of that slope, and he pins Aquaman by his hand between two rocks, or chains it, and he's going to make him watch his baby get run over by lava as well as Aquaman. So, like, they're both going to get run over by this underwater magma and die. And so Aquaman is able to communicate with, like, some type of creature to give him a sharp rock that he sees nearby, and he cuts off his own hand. And then he gets, like, a hook. Because there's a part of the comics where Aquaman for a while had a hook for a hand. I would love to see something like that. Like, really dramatic. Maybe Black Manta, like, threatens their kid or something like that and does a very similar sequence so that Momoa has to chop off his own hand. So it's kind of like Thor cutting his own hair or getting his hair cut or losing Mjolnir, but in this version he gets a hook for a hand. That would be pretty interesting if they do that eventually. Very dramatic. That's a lot more darker of a tone than what you had just discussed about a comedic guy making his way through stuff, but you can do drama. I mean, like, Thor loses his eye in Ragnarok.
Again,
stuff like that.
Again, Thor Ragnarok still has some emotional bits, and, like, there's a lot of, like, the brotherly love stuff in that. Thor is not, like, constantly cracking jokes. Neither is Jason Momoa.
Yeah.
I just think that, like, they need to focus it in. Like,
get more weird with it.
Yeah. Just make it your own thing. I felt like part of what I liked about Aquaman was, like, the movie was the more unique aspects of the movie, like the trench. That's something we'd never seen before. But then there's all this other stuff where it feels so derivative from all these other things that we know. Thor, Game of Thrones. Yeah. There's Star Wars. There's some prequel shit in this movie.
Oh yeah, there's some Gladiator stuff.
Gladiator too, yeah. And so it's like, I really want to see James Wan focus in on a really cool Aquaman story. And I don't know if it's even possible. Make me like Jason Momoa's character more, because right now I like Jason Momoa as a personality. Yeah. But I don't really care about Arthur Curry as a character.
Sure.
So
I can see that.
But all right, 3 questions.
3 questions. Favorite scene?
The trench.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know if I need to really even expound on it.
I don't know if I can. And then I guess my follow-up would be the Sicily fight.
Yeah, same.
And then if I had to pick a third one, it would be the bar scene. So I think we're kind of in the same boat with that one. No pun intended.
Water puns.
Yeah. All right. So rating and rankings.
Yeah. Okay. So let's do. Let us consult our list.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what my ratings are.
The Radiovania DCEU rankings here. Number 5, Suicide Squad. Number 4, Justice League. Number 3, Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice. Number 2, Man of Steel. And begrudgingly, number 1, Wonder Woman.
Right.
That's our list so far. I could pull up all of my rankings for the actual ratings, but we're in a car, technical,
sure.
Whatever.
I think
we can probably remember.
Where would you settle this on if you had to? Don't worry about your other ratings. But
wait, don't we need to do who won the movie? That's before the ratings.
Yeah, that's right. Who won the movie for you?
It's a hard question. Maybe James Wan.
I was thinking Wan.
Because this is perfect. This is perfect. Remember I was telling you earlier there was a piece of trivia I wanted to talk about? Yeah. So James Wan revealed after, in a press junket interview, that he had a choice, that Warner Brothers and DC came to him and approached him to direct a DC Comics movie. Okay. And he had a choice to direct either Aquaman or The Flash. Oh. He chose this movie because he said that Aquaman is the underdog and wanted to try his hand at making the movie.
Honestly, I think he did the right pick. I do.
I think so too.
I don't want to be the guy that's to touch Ezra Miller's Flash right now.
And I think that the Flash,
it's not scary.
You have to ground it in a way.
Yeah.
You know, the Flash has to be somewhat of a, I mean, there's a lot of mystical stuff. There's Flashpoint.
Yeah.
But you also have to make the Flash a human character on planet Earth with other people in a city. You know what I mean? And I think that James Wan probably was the winner of this movie because not only did he get a fat paycheck...
He proved everyone wrong.
He proved everyone wrong, said that he made one of the most financially successful DC Comics movies ever made.
Comic book movie.
One of the most financially successful comic book movies ever. He's going to go on to have a nice, healthy career. Not only was he... And he's even won... He's won the Hollywood game. He's made some of the biggest blockbusters ever. Furious 7 made, $1.8 billion or something.
Well, also, him and Jordan Peele are the king of horror right now, too.
Right.
With these Blumhouse low-budget films, he's just got a wide range, right? So he can make a $30 million horror film, like Conjuring, and he can also make something as big budget as this. He's talented. He's very talented.
Yeah, and I might not agree with every one of his decisions,
sure.
and I definitely don't.
They might not all be him too. I bet you he wanted more scary scenes like the trench.
I would assume
and
so.
And they gave him a note that he couldn't.
They were like, "You're allowed 10 minutes of horror. Use it wisely.
Do with it what you will."
Yeah. So I don't know. I would personally pick him. I think that you could probably also make a case for Jason Momoa just because he likes playing that character and he's a big actor.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone liked him as Khal Drogo, and
he just doesn't have enough time in that role in Game of Thrones. I mean, it's iconic and people like him, but this is a role that he can really embody for quite a while, it seems like. And because of how successful this one was, this Aquaman franchise, if you will, has got some legs to it now, where they could give James Wan a little bit more creative freedom going forward, which I think would be really cool.
I hope so. Yeah. And if I had to pick a loser, I would say it's Willem Dafoe because they made him act against terrible Hayden Christensen too.
Yeah. Oh man, I'd say Pitbull was the loser.
I redact. Pitbull is indeed the loser of this film.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool. So ratings and rankings. So I would.
Here's the thing. John.
Yes.
I'm feeling... I don't know if I want this movie to be above Batman v Superman or below it.
Okay, this is interesting. I like this.
Batman vs. Superman has a great concept. And it really... It strived to achieve a lot.
Okay.
And I think Zack Snyder, even though his vision might have been a little bit flawed, he definitely had a vision. I don't know if James Wan's vision for this movie was... Like I talked about, this Aquaman's bloated. It's a comedy. It's a superhero movie. It's a drama. It's a war movie. It's a romance thing. It's everything. Aquaman is every movie. I think Batman vs. Superman is...
It stays in its own lane.
Yes, it's a comic book movie. It's a story about Batman versus Superman and what the ramifications of that are. I also think that Batman v Superman has more moments collectively that I thought were really awesome spectacle moments.
Okay.
The actual fight between Batman versus Superman, the warehouse fight with Batman. You get...
That's kind of it.
Oh, come on, there's more than that.
Not really.
I mean...
Not really, though. The Trinity fight with Doomsday is not that great.
Yeah, I mean...
I guess, all the stuff after... his funeral's good. All that's really well made.
I like the characterization...
It's too soon.
I like the characterization of Wonder Woman before she before the fight.
Sure. Some of that Luthor stuff is just atrocious, though, and it's hard for me to...
The Luthor stuff is bad.
It's hard for me to get past that. I mean, some of the stuff with Alfred's really good. I guess like where I'm coming from is I agree with you about the cohesive vision. If say what you will about Zack Snyder, like he stays in his own lane, he knows what he wants. He gets some studio pushback, but at least for BVS, he didn't get any. He had free range, whether it turned out good or not. For me, I think these are both, from a rating standpoint, very similar for me.
Batman vs Superman and Aquaman?
Like rating, not ranking, but like rating. Like I think they're both like 50% movies. I think I gave them both 5s.
I'm trying to remember what I gave for Batman.
However, I think one of them is a lot more fun to watch, while one of them is more interesting. So like BVS is more interesting, but I could see myself throwing Aquaman on more frequently because of how campy and not as like dark and dim as it is. Yeah. I think BVS has better performances overall.
Yeah,
like
the acting and
like
writing
Aquaman,
in Batman.
Aquaman has like maybe 2 or 3 pretty good like standout performances where like this person did a really good job. Whereas like BVS is like Amy Adams is great, Henry and Ben are pretty good, Gal's good. I don't like Jesse Eisenberg, but at least he did what he had to do. I like Lawrence Fishburne in that movie. And Jeremy Irons, obviously, and Diane Lane. So like, it's just like I don't know. It's tough, but like right now we have BVS third.
Yeah, it goes Wonder Woman, Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman, Justice League, Suicide
So we're
Squad.
trying to determine if BVS should stay third or move down to fourth to make way for Aquaman.
That's my dilemma. Is that I definitely don't think this movie's not as epic and grand and emotional as Man of Steel.
Not even close.
And it doesn't even come close to being as good as Wonder Woman.
Not even close.
It definitely doesn't have any of that emotional resonance.
Yeah.
So it's somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
To me, it's a case of what do you want? Like you're saying, like you could put it on more frequently than Batman v Superman. Yeah, but are you getting the same amount of substance? I don't think that Aquaman is style over substance.
Yeah.
And Batman vs Superman is like has I don't know. It just to me it's a more compelling narrative.
Yeah.
Even though I don't agree with some of the choices.
The scheme, Luthor's scheme is so like there's so many sub bullet points to make things work. Like it has to align perfectly for him to do all this stuff, and it's very confusing. Unless you've seen it a couple times, which you and I have both seen that movie quite a bit.
And I'm specifically arguing for the ultimate cut. Yeah,
the theatrical sucks.
Because I like the opening of the ultimate cut. Like I liked all the desert stuff, the nightmare sequence too. That's another top. I love the nightmare sequence.
It's in both.
I know. I'm just saying, like, in addition to like the other 2 major cool moments, like that moment, I think is like awesome.
That's gonna mean more now because of the Snyder cut. That's the thing that's interesting is if there was no Snyder cut, I don't think we would be as friendly to BVS as we are right now because it's gonna be a cohesive vision, which is exciting. I don't know, man. I could go either way.
Yeah,
I personally like Aquaman more than BVS, but for different reasons. Like it's more of just like from not a critical standpoint. It's more of just like I think it's more fun. I would rather watch it.
You know what I'm curious?
I'm kind of biased towards. I like the villain performance of Black Manta, and I like some of the set pieces a lot more than BVS. So. Rotten Tomatoes, I think Aquaman's at like a 60.
That's what I was about to say.
Yeah, and the audience is also probably a lot higher too. So if we take the Rotten Tomatoes route, I think Aquaman would edge it out.
Aquaman 2018, Rotten Tomatoes, 65%. Critic recommendation, 74% audience recommendation. Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice, not the ultimate cut. Yep. 28% critic recommendation, 62% audience score.
Yeah, so overall, Aquaman's probably higher. I don't know about Metacritic. The other thing, too, and this we're going to talk about this a lot more when we get to Shazam, is I've liked the more recent DC films that aren't trying to... Like, Aquaman is trying to do a lot, but it's only trying to do a lot with one hero.
Yeah, that's there's something to be said about that Aquaman is a contained story that you don't really need to watch. They say Steppenwolf, though.
Yeah, they do say that. But this movie, in the same way that Wonder Woman and Shazam will be eventually, too, and I haven't seen Birds of Prey yet, but maybe it does a little bit, is like, if the DC universe were to implode, which please God, let it implode and start over, like, these movies could still stand the test of time as, like, fun rewatches on their own, that they don't necessarily have to be solely tied to BVS or Justice League.
Sure.
Whereas, like, BVS, that is kind of a contained movie. You can't appreciate Superman very much in that movie unless you see Man of Steel, and you can't appreciate what it means until you see Superman come back. That makes sense. It's definitely a middle chapter that needs other things. Whereas Aquaman, if there is never another sequel, it's fine. Like, you can be one and done with this. You know, in the same way that they could have been one and done with Wonder Woman, Hollywood's greedy. They're going to keep milking it. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's just I like how it can be more contained, and I prefer James Wan's directing to Zack Snyder's in terms of like history and stuff like that. But comparing those two films is a little bit trickier because they're both not great films. They both have both have parts that I despise and parts that I really like that are right out of the page of a book. So they're almost like it's almost like a 3A, 3B for me right now.
Yeah, I see every point you're coming at, and I think you're totally right. For me, I think what I'm really struggling in my head is that I think I just would prefer to watch a Superman and Batman story rather than
those
an Aquaman
characters
story.
are more interesting. Yeah.
But again, I could go like whether it takes the fourth place spot or it takes the third place spot. Yeah. I really have no.
I think for the internet to not hate us, maybe we should put Aquaman above it because most people will enjoy that movie more. Or our audiences overseas that gave it $850 million.
There is something to be said about the success of the movie too. It obviously was a more like it was an audience pleasing film. So I don't know. I think again, like the old adage where it's like we should hold the Oscars 5 years after the films come out so that we can see how they age.
Sure.
Aquaman's only been out for 3 years, 2018, yes.
I would love to see how our opinions change after a sequel. Because if the sequel is really good, I think we're going to like this movie a lot more.
Yeah, if they're able to develop Aquaman as a character, then you can go back and appreciate it.
It's kind of like BVS, because we were pretty harsh on BVS. And then we saw how bad Justice League was, and we're like, BVS? Not that bad.
Not that bad in comparison.
Not that bad.
Justice League, hot trash.
So maybe like it will depend on that Aquaman thing, but maybe for now we should just put it third, beneath Man of Steel and Wonder Woman.
I have no qualms, and the motion passes.
All right.
Number 1, Wonder Woman. Number 2, Man of Steel. Number 3, Aquaman. Number 4, Batman v Superman. Number 5, Justice League. And number 6, Suicide Squad.
Hey, if anything, Suicide Squad, you're never going to change, baby. You'll always be there.
I'm trying to think. That's the bottom of the barrel, right? I mean,
and Justice League, there's nothing that's going to go beneath that. Unless you lied to me and Birds of Prey is really bad.
No. I think Birds of Prey is very good.
I think our bottom 3 are pretty much locked in now. So I think that bottom 3 is going to be Suicide Squad, Justice League, BVS, Aquaman. It's just where do the other 2 fit in above Aquaman?
Yeah.
Because I have a feeling Birds of Prey is probably better than Aquaman, and I haven't even seen it. So.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil too much of my future opinions because I do want to get. I want you to watch Birds of Prey with fresh eyes. But
what we should consider is Wonder Woman 84 could be bad, and that could fall really far down. You never know. I doubt it.
I have a hard time believing it's going to be worse than Batman vs Superman
or Aquaman.
We'll see. I don't know. Yeah, there's a big question mark.
It's how bad is the cheetah? That's going to be. It's not going to be Pedro Pascal's fault. It's going to be, does the cheetah work?
I have faith in Kristen Wiig's performance. I mean, the cheetah herself, like the visuals might be bad, but I think Kristen Wiig is a class act. She usually is a good actress. But all right. So that's Aquaman.
Yep.
We made it, my man. Next episode.
I can't wait.
Shazam.
I cannot wait to talk about Shazam.
We're gonna record Shazam on the drive in the desert, so we'll have nothing to do but ourselves and Aquaman Shazam. Follow the show at Radiovania, radiovaniashow@gmail.com. Go to radiovania.com for every episode. Thank you all for listening this far. If you've made it this far, you got yourself 2 hours and 10 minutes of Aquaman. That's some
almost
good talk.
Almost as long as the movie.
Almost as long. Well, yeah, we almost.
Actually, maybe with credit, it is as long as the movie.
But thank you, John, for joining me. I'm very excited to talk Shazam. Do you have an Aquaman quote you want to end this with?
You gotta live so you can kill that son of a bitch.